Hello, welcome to another DCU Daily, everybody. We are here going to be talking about tons of superheroes, so much superhero news. We're going to be talking more about the Penguin. We're going to be talking about John Bernthal coming back as Punisher. We're going to talk about Power Girl comics and Matt Reeves and Luca Guadagnino and big story in regards to the new Wonder Woman game and some news in regards to those Absolute comics. But it's not just that. We're going to be also talking about, a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to be talking about award shows and all that fun stuff, all that fun recent stuff. But we also have a big fan casting today. But before that, hit, let's get into the news and have a little fun.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number two.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding. You're kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see Colin.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the needs now?
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Welcome back. My name is John. If you didn't know already, I mean, most of the regulars know. But hey, anybody coming in late, coming in after the fact, they don't know. That's okay. We still love and appreciate you anyway. But I'm John. Nice to see you guys again. But the first story we will be getting into news-wise is, in fact, Colin Farrell talking about the Penguin Season 2. He has no deep desire to do it. Now, we did get that big announcement yesterday in regards to the whole DC slate. We got a lot of info in regards to movies that are happening, movies that are going to happen, TV shows that are going to happen. I don't know why I pronounced it like that. And some other stuff that were like, this stuff is still alive, just being put on the back burner and all that. And people lost their fucking minds like, oh, it's canceled. This fucking DC regime is ruined. It's going to suck. Da, 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 da. Typical stuff. You guys know. But there was also a little tiny bit on the Penguin, a possibility of a season 2. I apologize for that. They mention how they aren't really planning a season 2 right now. They might do it, but they probably won't. But Colin Farrell has kind of gone back and forth a little bit on whether he wants to do a season 2. Sometimes he says, I want to do it. Sometimes he says he doesn't. But now, for right now, I have no deep desire to do it. He's kind of not really, our boy's not really into it right now, which is fair, as James Gunn said, the 800 pounds of makeup that he has to wear, or as he says in his Irish brogue, the fucking suit. Again, I always go Scottish on that. I apologize. I hope Lenny's not watching, but but Colin Farrell was talking about how he just had he doesn't really want to do it. He says he doesn't. I don't not want to do it. He said that because as we were mentioning yesterday, he just came off his, SAG award win, but he's talking about how he's not in a rush. It is not a huge desire. He's like, I need a break. I'm gonna get a good break because I'm gonna have like a couple months before we get back into it. I won't be filming a lot. As he said, he only has like 5 or 6 scenes in the Batman Part 2. So it's unlikely we're gonna be getting the Penguin Season 2 if there is a Season 2 beforehand. So I think that's fine, honestly. Like, good for him. He's like, I just am a little bit tired of it. Not in like a bad way, but it's like, it's understandable. The bro's like, again, he's wearing so much prosthetics. He's like, I love the character. I love playing this character. But he's like, we all left it in the ring for those 8 hours. I would hate it just because of a quote unquote success. Have to go it again for it to be a diluted version of what people seem to feel it is majoritively. So I'm in no rush. I have no deep desire to do it. Sure, if they think of something that works in conjunction as a parallel to Matt Reeves' cinematic universe, and it's a good idea, I'm open to it. But it's not something concerning me. So essentially, it's like mix of prosthetics, mix of the idea of he doesn't want to make it for making its sake just because it's successful. He's like, if there's a story to tell, then yes, I'm all for it. But let's not make stuff to make stuff, which, I respect the man for wanting to do that. He takes this stuff very seriously in regards to the creative action. So, but I am curious. Dan, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, hi. I'm not surprised by this because he's made it pretty clear on many an occasion that he's not really looking forward to the idea of getting back into all the prosthetics and stuff. So I'm honestly not surprised by his comments. I mean, look, he's loving picking up all those awards, which is great. I mean, you know what, power to him. Continue to go and do more of that, but I don't think he's in a rush to get back out there and do it all over again. Because I mean, honestly, I mean, he's probably just waiting at this point to just see what he gets to do in the Batman Part 2, and then I guess he'll take it from there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in a rush, and it seems like he's definitely not in a rush to get back into 8 hours of hair and makeup before he gets to shoot a single frame of footage for the show. But I mean, that's not to say, obviously, that he doesn't want to come back. I think he's said many times that this has been, an experience of a lifetime for somebody who, with his caliber and level of experience. I think that says a lot, and I'm sure the moment he gets a call from Matt Reeves, as we're gonna get into a little bit later, his affinity for Matt Reeves, he's gonna be happy to get back into the game as the Penguin. But I don't think he's rushing to do it, and I don't blame him. Plus, he's always been somebody, Colin Farrell, who's diversified his portfolio of work. So I don't think that, he's going to be short for opportunities. In fact, now that he has gotten such, immense amount of praise and attention and awards and everything for playing the Penguin, I'm sure this is going to lead to other opportunities for him in his career. And, good on him for that, because he deserves it. I think he's getting recognition finally after years of, I think, being, kind of playing the bridesmaids. Like, he's been in a lot of movies where, well, not literally, but like, you know what I mean? Like, he's always been a great supporting character. He would rarely get recognized as like a great lead actor. And it's while it's unfortunate, it's also, I guess, a good thing that, it took the Penguin to bring his talent to the fore, where people are appreciating him for the immensely talented individual that he is as an actor, as a person, obviously. Underrated, I would say, is the one word to describe him. And look, even Banshees of Inisherin, we talked about it at the Oscars. The Oscars coming up this weekend. He is flown under the radar. I mean, he's, like I said, often the bridesmaid. He gets nominated, he never wins. I mean, yes, this is for television, but it still counts, right? Like, it's still a big deal. So, I'm hoping that this leads to more opportunities for him, both in other TV franchises as well as the movies, because I think he really deserves it, and I'm glad that he's finally getting the attention, but I'm not surprised at all, not one bit, that he's not in a rush to get back into the suit. I'm sure he's going to Matt Reeves is taking his time, so why shouldn't he take his time, right? I know yesterday we were talking about James Gunn and Peter Safran saying some of going into season 2 will depend on Colin Farrell himself. They kind of implied that some of this depends on how committed he is to the idea of doing another season and how soon. So maybe he's got a few things in mind, like he wants to try a couple other projects that he maybe has in mind before he gets back into the suit for the Penguin. And also, we have talked about how the events of the Penguin sort of lead into the next Batman movie. So how do you then go from there to essentially another Penguin season without necessarily spoiling the events of the second Batman film? Like, I'm sure maybe there's a way to do it, or maybe they can kind of retroactively change things around, but it makes sense that right now they're holding off on starting work because Matt Reeves is busy enough. and the man can barely get this current movie off the ground. So I'm sure, and yes, Lauren LaFranc, I think, well, she's very talented and she'll have lots to do between now and the next time she comes back to this universe. Maybe she's continuing to do stuff for this universe behind the scenes with the Batman and other related characters. But yeah, I think given the success that they've had with this show, they shouldn't have to worry about losing the talent. Like Matt Reeves is not going to have to worry about calling up, Lauren LaFranco or or Colin Farrell, or even Christian Milioti, and being like, "Do you want to come back to this franchise?" And it's hearing a no, because I don't think these actors or creators, producers, and writers will say no to the opportunity, because obviously this is the one thing. None of these talents, while they're incredibly talented, none of them would qualify as A-listers. So I don't think any of them are in a rush to go and do other things. Yeah, well, they'll have other opportunities, but the Batman will still remain the biggest thing on their resumes. I can't imagine Colin Farrell's about to take on a different role that's going to become, I mean, let's hope it does. I mean, we wish them all the success, but I don't think there's another career-defining role that's waiting around the corner for Colin Farrell necessarily, or Christian Milioti, and they've both done a lot of work. They still have other things going on. So yeah, not surprised. Sorry, long answer, but yeah, I'm not surprised that he's in rushing back.
You're making up for the fact you were late, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just glad we got Caleb in the chat today.
I like his answer of like, I'm gonna enjoy my award and then move on. I'll be in my pajamas in exactly 105 minutes from now, ordering Postmates and watching episode 10 of Shogun with my kid while the after party is on.
I haven't had dinner. I can
order
some Postmates.
Like be like the Chad Colin Farrell versus the Virgin Rob Liefeld. He's like, fuck the after party. I'm gonna go enjoy Postmates with my son and watch a baller TV show. Meanwhile, Rob Liefeld, why did I get invited? So, in this world, be a Colin Farrell.
Yep. Yeah. Well, exactly. Be Colin Farrell. That's good advice. But hey, let's move on to the next news story. What else do we have?
Going from, iconic Irishmen to iconic Brits. We have, that was a great
or I guess it depends, right? Iconic Scots, maybe. I don't know. It depends on which
it could be anybody on the British Isles. I mean, we did get Pierce Brosnan's Irish, right? Yeah, I think he's Irish. Yeah, he's Irish.
Is he? Is he Irish? Okay.
I think so.
Somebody find out for us. We're gonna need some research on this.
Yes, he's Irish. He's Irish. Yes. Okay, so I think so Irish, we've got Sean Connery was Scottish. Pierce Brosnan was Irish. I don't think we've ever gotten a Welsh James Bond. So
have we? Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think so, but yeah, interesting.
Enterprising saying, who wouldn't want a Dublin Irish accent? Hell yeah. I mean, you know what? Colin Farrell could be the next James Bond. I don't think he's
he's really putting the Dublin in 007.
That is the pun of the night so far. There we go. By the way, Caleb's saying there's a rumor that Lauren LaFranc is up to be a showrunner on the Sopranos spinoff that HBO is mulling over. Not surprised. I'm not surprised. HBO would want to keep her in-house, and I'm sure she's going to get plenty of opportunities to do other things for the network, including potentially a season 2 for the Penguin. But John, talking about Amazon. So now that Amazon MGM own James Bond, this article in Variety sort of pointed out a few things along the lines, of course, like we talked about how Jeff Bezos, I'm pretty sure at least half jokingly, was asking the world, who do you want to see as the next James Bond and stuff. But I mean, the question, I think, becomes renewed at this point, because Amazon didn't just spend another $1 billion buying the creative control over the franchise to sit on it, right? It says right there on one of the side articles, no time to delay, and I think that has to do with the fact that Amazon has intentions to bring more James Bond movies, and possibly more than just movies, to a screen near you. And that means they're going to be looking to recast James Bond. And that was something that was kind of pushed off and put on the back burner while they tried to figure all this creative control stuff out. But now that we have one party that controls the creative direction of the franchise, let me ask you, where do you see this going now, the casting process? Because I mean, the casting process before, for pretty much the entirety of the history of James Bond, has been, you've got a producer or two, right? At least two of the producers who have always kind of been like the owners, who no longer are in creative control, the Broccoli's and stuff, Harry Saltzman, like they were the ones who would go and kind of be the ones to decide what they wanted in the next James Bond and then pick an actor. Now we're in a situation where you have a organization, like we were talking about yesterday, how Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Lucasfilm, and obviously I think when George Lucas was in charge, Lucasfilm was his creation, so everything Star Wars came from his mind, so he inherently knew what he was looking for when he went looking for a Han Solo and stuff, right? Even though Harrison Ford wasn't the first choice, but like, a lot of those iconic characters were, George Lucas knew what he was doing. And it's similar to how those producers, like the Broccoli's and stuff, like they knew what they were looking for. They had that mold in their mind. Now that brain trust is no longer part of the picture. Now you have Amazon, an organization akin to a Disney taking over Lucasfilm, and we know what they ended up doing with the direction that they took a new trilogy of Star Wars movies in. I mean, obviously, the ups and downs of it all, and so on and so forth, but with Amazon now, where do you think they go next with the casting process? I mean, let's kind of simplify it for a second. Do you think their first step is to go and cast a new James Bond? Because that's usually how in the past the franchise would move on from one era to the next, is like they cast their Bond and then they build around him. It's kind of like when you build a sports team, right? Like you get your star and then you build around him. Whereas if they want to do more of a cinematic universe, maybe you do something akin to what James Gunn has been doing at DC, which is you set up a set of stories and like sort of a structure behind the scenes, and then you bring in writers to write scripts for the projects you have in mind, for characters you want to play around within this universe, and then you cast the actors. So like the casting process, it becomes more akin to like every other movie, where you have the script done, you do all the other legwork, and then the casting happens almost on the back end of pre-production rather than on the front end of it. So which way do you think they go now? Do you think they're going to continue to do what they were doing, what the Broccoli's had done for years, which is you cast your Bond and then you go and do everything else? You bring in a director, you do everything else. Or do you think that they're going to first create a new cinematic universe and all the foundations for it, and then go looking for a Bond?
They're probably gonna look for their guy first and then create a cinematic universe, because that's a stupid idea, and they're probably gonna do that because it's just like, what? How can you fucking build a cinematic universe around Bond? Is like, you have one character. What are you gonna fucking, at least with like, say what you will, but like terrible ones like the Monsterverse. I mean, I like the Monsterverse, but or the fucking, whatever it is, the Sonyverse,
The
all
Dark
these
Universe?
lesser
Oh, no,
Marvel
that one,
universes.
yeah.
At least with like, they have multiple characters to play around with. No, they have multiple characters to play around with, and with that works, because you can. It's one guy. You have James Bond. That's it. That's the guy. What are you gonna make, a Spectre spinoff? You're gonna make a Blofeld spinoff? You're gonna make a
I mean, you could,
006 spinoff? Like,
but
I
you
don't know
can
how
do an
you're gonna
MI6.
fucking make this work.
I mean, you could do an MI6 series. You can do a Monty Penny spinoff. Because remember, this is the one thing I actually thought that the previous James Bond iteration with Daniel Craig, they started off doing it well, but then they sort of dropped the ball, which is with Monty Penny. Like having Naomi Harris as Monty Penny and giving her the story that she was an agent in the field that it ends up, with an administrative assignment because she shot Bond, was a great origin story. But then from there, she never really, I think, grew into a fully fleshed out character. By the time we got to, No Time to Die, she was still very much this one dimensional character who was just there to serve a purpose, kind of like more what Monty Penny used to be back in the day. Just, somebody who worked at the desk at the MI6 office. That was really it. So I wonder if, like, you can take some of those characters, like maybe, I'm saying like it's the thing that you're commoditizing an IP where you're gonna all of a sudden do a Q thing series where like all the technology division of the MI6 and stuff. But I'm just saying those are the potential avenues that they might be considering if you are going to do a cinematic universe, and yeah, I mean they're probably going to reboot regardless of which direction they go in, and that seems to be what the Broccoli's wanted to do. But we did have like Caleb was mentioning, Lashana Lynch was one of the double O's in the last James Bond movie. Maybe she could maybe they can bring her back at least and potentially have her be somebody, and maybe that's like what a connective tissue, right? Because in the past we have seen, for example, Judi Dench continued to play M when we went from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig. And so do you bring Ray Fiennes back as M now that he was the one playing that character? So yeah, I wonder which direction they're going to go in. I mean, let's just for the time being, let's say, regardless of which way they go, they're going to need a Bond. Who do you think becomes the new front runner now that the Broccolis aren't the ones calling the shots, but it's Amazon, and whoever, the Amazon studio, MGM Studios head picks to make these decisions, if not themselves? Who do you think they end up picking as Bond? I mean, right now, for example, Henry Cavill is a big part of Amazon's future with all the projects from Voltron to Warhammer 40,000, like 40K. It's like every other project that Henry Cavill is doing right now is at Amazon. So do you think that makes Henry Cavill more likely? What do you think?
I mean, it's likely, but he is 40 right now, and an expert was taking a guess like they'll probably go younger. Allegedly they wanted to go super young with someone in their late 20s, but it seems like they're going for someone in their 30s. He's on the tail end of that. He's at 40, 41 now, so it's unlikely. I mean, he's still in excellent shape, so could he do it? Probably. But I mean, he did a great job as Napoleon Solo, and that was kind of a similar vibe, even though he had an American accent. But I think that would be really, really, really good. But I think, I don't know. I think there's plenty of other better, like actors who are in their prime. I wouldn't say. Okay, here's the thing. I wouldn't say Henry Cavill isn't in his prime. I'm just saying, like, try to go on if you want to keep this franchise, if you're really rebooting everything and want to, really build that out and do all that, then gotta go with someone on the tail end of like 30. I don't know who that would be. Not Tom Holland, please, for the love of God, not Tom Holland. But someone just like all the other actors. I mean, maybe go with an unknown, like go with someone who hasn't done a lot behind his name and go with him. I just think that would be great. Idris Elba is black and too old, so I don't think he would be the character. And so I just don't think that would work.
I don't think that should be a disqualifying necessarily. I mean, the age maybe more so, but
I think, well, the thing with James Bond is like he's not a very like the whole reason was like he's a dinosaur from the Cold War. That's what makes what makes the character interesting, and like because he's a man from like an old time that's not there anymore. And I think that fits better as like a straight white dude than like, oh, cast a woman as Jane Bond, or cast a black guy, or cast a fucking Hispanic guy. It just doesn't, I feel it doesn't work with that specific character, because it's like the whole basis of James Bond is that he is of this old traditional age, and I feel like if you do that to the character, you're losing what makes that character, I sure there you can race bend a lot of different characters and it still work. I mean, here's the thing: we've had a Black Money, and this you can be diverse in this series without changing Bond to like race bending him, like Black Money Penny, a gay Q. We've gotten some diverse shit in this franchise. So we've had a female M. So it's not like totally out of nowhere, but I think I think that would be. I just think that's what I know of the character. That just fits a lot better than just race swapping him for little reason. But that's, I don't know.
But by the way, I
Maybe
think
I'm just an
Fiona
idiot.
pointing out Jack Loudon, she knows I love the idea of Jack Loudon
I
being
don't. I
essentially
haven't
Bond.
seen him in anything. So
He's in Slow Horses, and I think he's Scottish. So again, continuing on, in the great footsteps of Sean Connery. So
I think Sam
it could
Heughan
be a
could be
great.
good, but he might be too
Yeah.
old.
I think so. I don't know if you're talking about 1941 Enterprising or 1917, because in 1917 you had Richard Madden, George McKay, and Andrew Scott, and obviously Benedict Cumberbatch, who's also at some point been considered. So Richard Madden would still make a great Bond. Just watch Bodyguard, right, on Netflix. Still one of the best things, one of the best limited series of the recent times. Caleb saying, I don't want to go back to classic Bond type movies. I don't think Bond movies should be gritty spy drama. It should be Bond sky surfing on a tidal wave. Okay.
Please, God, no.
Hopefully with better VFX. But yes, Enterprising, you were talking about 1917. I mean, JB is joining in. Yeah, we did talk about Cavill, and Cavill is very much, in the Amazon wheelhouse right now. But Tom Hardy, also another one. I mean, all the obvious picks, right? Like, these are the ones that have been brought up in the past. I just wonder if now that you have the folks at Amazon doing this as opposed to the Broccolis, maybe they will their search will be a little more wide reaching, and maybe they will have other possibilities. So like they won't just consider the usual suspects. Maybe they're looking to do something completely different. Who knows? But hey, let us know in the comments down below who you think should be the next James Bond. It's going to be a question that we will be trying to answer, hopefully for not very long, because why spend all that money if you're going to sit on this for a long time? I'm pretty sure Amazon probably even has a timeline for when they want to cast a new Bond by, so that they can start working on the next set of movies and move forward. So hopefully we'll know very soon who that next Bond happens to be. John has decided to duck out of the stream, so while he resets his connection, I'm going to continue on with the show here. We still have a couple of news stories to get into, and then we have quick hit. Actually, we have one more news story to get into, and then we're going to get into the quick hits portion of the show. So let's do that with the next news story. The last news story that we got to do is something to do with Marvel. I mean, we talk a lot of Marvel on the show because there's a lot going on in the world of the MCU. So right now, I wanted to get into. I came across this story earlier. Actually, it was late last night, earlier this morning, depending on what I think it was like past midnight. So,
about that, my fucking browser crashed.
It's all good. It's all good. But hey, you know what? We just have one more news story to take care of, and that's Jon Bernthal is going to be returning as the Punisher in what's going to be a Marvel special presentation for Disney Plus,
which they said they would stop doing. Right? So, like, I guess they're bringing it back.
So they're bringing it back. I guess you know what it is. I think this was one of those things where Kevin Feige loved the idea, but under Bob Chapek, they were like, we're not going to do that anymore. And so they were just only having them do TV shows and movies. But I guess now that Bob Chapek is gone and Bob Iger gave all that control back to Kevin Feige, he's like, you know what? Those special presentations were pretty darn good. And I'd be honest with you, I think some of the best stuff they've done in the post-Endgame era were those special presentations. So I'm excited, dude.
Yeah, I heard
I'm excited to see him come back for that.
Because again, holiday special in Werewolf by Night.
I mean, the Punisher is a perfect example of a character where you don't necessarily want to commit to doing a whole show, maybe not even a limited series.
Exactly. If it fails and all that.
Yeah, it's like in the comics they have like those limited runs, right? Or like a one-off special edition. This is what those special presentations are like. So
yeah. I think this is a better idea, because the thing is with Daredevil, they kind of just have to like go along with it because it's already been greenlit. But it's like, okay, let's take our time with this. Let's not go too far. Let's do this shit properly. So it's like, okay, if this special presentation is received well, then he'll maybe get
exactly
an actual show and a continuation, season 3, redone season 1, whatever you want to fucking call it. But so I think this is a good idea. Give him what is essentially a TV movie, but for streaming. But I liked both seasons of The Punisher. It's just the problem, like season 2 is really good when it focuses on the John Pilgrim stuff, but when it focuses on the Jigsaw stuff, it's just terrible. So it's like a very much like a mixed bag, but like when it's really good, it's good. When it's bad, it's really fucking bad. So I would say just focus on the stuff that worked. Maybe retcon it so that like Jigsaw didn't die. Maybe have him actually look like the character and then go on from there. But that would be great because I want to see Jigsaw, but like done fucking correctly. So
Well,
obviously, we'll see, but I just, I think it's exciting. I think John Bernthal was a great Punisher, and I'd love to see him play the role again in Daredevil Born Again. If the show doesn't suck, if it sucks, then I'm not watching it. But if forgetting this, I'll be like, all right, I'll check this out if it's,
yeah.
especially if he's writing it. So
Yeah, and they say in the article here, I'm going to read out the paragraph. Bernthal is co-writing the standalone special, now in the works alongside Ronaldo Marcus Green, who will also direct. And then this Disney Plus show will air in 2026 alongside the second season of Daredevil. So Daredevil, Born Again, of course, is coming out, I think, in like a week, pretty much. Literally, I think it's a week from today, if I'm correct. It's coming out next Tuesday. So we will have a better idea where that show leaves off the Punisher by the end of the first season, and then if it's running alongside Daredevil Born Again, like it's probably going to air while the second season of Daredevil is airing. I wonder if the stories will continue to tie together or if the Punisher will be like off doing his own thing somewhere. But that'll be interesting. I mean, I think this could potentially be just another great opportunity for Marvel to test out the format, and then this could be how they bring back Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and then so many other characters that the Defenders introduced that we don't necessarily need to get a full show from, but maybe a one-off special could be enough. And then maybe if they do well enough, you can continue to do more of them. Who knows? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that more of that. So there's a lot of characters in the MCU that could potentially do well to have their own specials. But John, I think that will conclude the news portion of the show, and now we have to move on to the quick hits. So why don't you hit that quick hits music, and let's dive into some other pieces of news that we don't necessarily want to spend as much time on.
yes, hang on. I just gotta go to. That wasn't open. There we go. There it is.
The 20th anniversary. You all good there?
Yeah, because you were sounded like you were underwater for a second. I was like,
oh, I'm sorry. It's the audio thing. But anyway, so the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. That 20th anniversary is happening this year. They're already have plans to bring it back to a movie theater so you can go check it out for yourself on a big screen if you weren't around when the original movie came out, or if you're too young back then. I remember the Revenge of the Sith was probably the first Star Wars movie that I discovered the franchise through, because it was the new movie at the time, and then I sort of like retroactively have seen every single film in the universe. But I obviously will always have a special place in my heart because that was my first interaction with Star Wars. I'm probably dating myself by saying that, but hey, you know what? We all have our entry points into our favorite franchises, and to me, Revenge of the Sith was the one. And so I'm excited. I mean, 20 years, man. It's insane to think that 20 years have gone by since that movie came out. But also, what do you think about the poster that they put out? This is to commemorate the 20th anniversary. They're going to be putting it back in a movie theater near you, so you can go see it for a weekend or two. It's going to be around the time of Star Wars Celebration, which this year will be in Japan. What are your thoughts on the 20th anniversary of what was by a lot of people considered the best of an otherwise very uneven trilogy of prequels?
Cool.
All right. Okay. Well, then moving on to the next thing, John Malkovich. Of course, he's gonna be part of Fantastic Four's first steps, but apparently that's not the first Marvel project he's been offered. He was offered many roles over the years, and he kept turning them down because he didn't like the idea of just being in hair and makeup for a long time and not necessarily acting against real actors. Maybe because they do a lot of shooting on green screen studios and sets, but for some reason he signed on for this one. And the other thing he mentioned in that interview in Variety was they were like, well, if you're gonna have me do all of those things and have me struggle through hair and makeup and oh, excuse me, but and then also of course act against tennis balls and stuff like Ian McKellen in the Lord of the Rings movies, for example. He was like, pay me more And I guess it's for when it came down to it, most of the time the offers he got were just not worth the amount of money he would be getting to do the work that they would be asking him to do. But it seems like for Fantastic Four, they figured out the right mix. And this is what he recently said when he was talking about his experience on the set of the Fantastic Four. He said it's a very odd experience because nothing is really there except giant screens and 18 epic cranes. It's quite odd in that way, but it was fun. The cast was fun. We'll see how it goes. The thing I want to highlight here is he talks about giant screens, so I'm guessing he's talking about like a volume-like set, and then 18 epic cranes. I wonder what that means. Do you think that has something to do with his character in the movie? Like, who is he playing?
I think he's just being hyperbolic. I think he's like 18 cranes. Like, all right, come on, that's a bit ridiculous even for a movie like this. I think he's just being, I think he's just being funny. He's being hyperbolic because he's like, he's essentially like talking down to the whole experience because he's like, this isn't like a real movie. This is like beneath me, and it is. But I don't know who he's gonna play. Some people have said, oh, he's gonna be like a different version of Doctor Doom, like the Doctor Doom like that we know of with RDJ isn't gonna be this universe's one, and this is like an older version. I don't know. I don't think that's true, but he could be playing a whole bunch of different characters. He could be playing like a parent. He could be playing like a future version of like Franklin Richards or something like that. He could be playing a lot of things. I don't know what it's going to be. He's like, knowing Disney, it's probably going to be like a one-off nothing character that was made for the movie, and he's going to have 5 minutes of screen time. That's like, seems to be their bread and butter at this point. So,
yeah. Well, by the way, hello to Right Dude in the chat, talking about Star Wars, and he's he's thinking he could be a Gandalf-like character, basically a wizard in the MCU. Yeah, I don't know. TC24 have your powers doubled since last time? I guess so. Well, we'll see if the Fantastic Four are able to at least double, if not triple, the box office of Captain America Brave New World, because the current Captain America Brave New World, well, the fourth movie in the franchise, is not just, starting to flop on its face despite having a great opening weekend. We talked about yesterday, 68% drop at the second weekend in the box office. It's also confusing the heck out of Hideo Kojima, the famous, game developer. He went and saw it, and he was like, I don't know what is going on with this movie. One of his comments was, I vaguely remember Sam receiving the shield in Endgame. So obviously he saw Endgame. But when he did officially become Cap, when did he become, officially become Cap? Because he wasn't sure. Is it because I haven't seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? To answer his question, yes, that's kind of where he really becomes Captain America. And then what's this about the Avengers being reorganized? Well, that was news to everybody in the movie. I'm also getting it mixed up with the Thunderbolts trailer. Yes, that's the other thing. So there are some crossovers because obviously, he's
I love the top comment. All he had to do was watch one horribly mediocre 6-hour series to watch this mediocre at best excuse of a film. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Caleb is like, Hideo Kojima is such a nerd and I love it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, hey, I'm sure he's not the only one who's been confused by the movie and the events of the film. I think they really tried to do way too much with that movie. But speaking of the Thunderbolts, recently Bucky was talking about how he really doesn't have a costume. Like, he's always dressed differently. I feel like the closest thing we got to a Winter Soldier costume of some kind was in Captain America the Winter Soldier. Ever since, his look has sort of changed and evolved, and he's always sort of just wearing some street clothes. And he did recently comment on it, saying costumes in a character's wardrobe or how they dress really tells a story, and it tells us a lot about that particular character, about that person. So I take the wardrobe very seriously. Of course, in the new movie, it seems like he's wearing whatever military garb he's wearing, while he, I guess, taking a pause from his run for Senate. So do you think the Winter Soldier should have a costume, like a set costume like the Red Guardian does, for example, or does it really matter? Like, his role in the MCU is always kept on evolving, so I suppose he can dress for the moment. Most of the time he's wearing some kind of military tactical gear.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Cool. Moving on to the next one. Very simple. It looks like James Gunn finally saw Companion, and he said it's freaking incredible. What are your thoughts? I mean, Jack Quaid responded to him saying, well, giving him 3
I
hearts.
mean, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's not my favorite of the year, but it's damn great, and Jack Quaid really appreciated that. So yeah, Superman appreciating James Gunn. There we go.
I'm gonna give a heart to his 3 hearts, and well, check out Companion. We actually reviewed it on the channel, so go back and check out the review. Liz talked about it. You talked about it. You guys both had a pretty good experience with it. But in case you missed it, Spider-Man 4 will reportedly feature in Zendaya's MJ in a minor role, and it has to do mostly with the fact that she's got a packed schedule, so she's only really available to film for 1 month in August of this year, so they're not going to be able to feature her as heavily as they have done in the last 3 movies. And on the other hand, Charlie Cox apparently will get his wish to return in another Spider-Man movie because his Daredevil character will be in there, and the reports are that there will be more symbiotes, and that, of course, at the end of the last movie, they kind of set up like Tom Hardy's symbiote, leaving a little bit of himself behind. So that little blob is probably going to grow into other symbiotes, maybe, and that's how we get the symbiotes in the MCU. And then the rumor also includes that not only we're going to get, John Bernthal's Punisher, but maybe even Mephisto. I mean, do you think that's too many characters? This is coming from the Snyder, Jeff Snyder.
And it's, of course, Jeff Snyder. The only thing that's good about this is Zendaya having a small role, which does make sense. She's got a packed schedule. She's probably doing Dune Messiah, doing Euphoria Season 3. So she's probably going to be packed to the brim, which is good, because I don't want to fucking see her, because the whole basis was that she was supposed to forget. Now, here's the thing.
Exactly,
I think
that's what Ron was talking about,
that they can make it work without having her know, and keeping her in a small role, but like, bro, just get the Spider-Man to date Black Cat, like, please. We almost got it with Spider-Man 4, played by Anne Hathaway, even though she was the Vulturess, not Black Cat. But like, fucking just have like, he's porked Gwen Stacy, he's porked Mary Jane, he's porked this weird original character / MJ illusion type thing. Just Black Cat. Give him Black Cat. Boom. There we go. That's the one romantic interest he hasn't fucked yet. So like, just give him that. Let him do that. Boom. There we go.
Yeah, I wonder what Tom Holland Spider-Man will get up to in his college days. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who's going to go out partying a lot. But anyway, in the meantime, Ron was asking why wouldn't James Gunn hire Sophie Thatcher? Who's Sophie Thatcher for Zatanna's?
Sophie Thatcher.
Thatcher.
Thatcher is from Companion.
Okay. You know what? That might not be a bad choice, but I guess it depends on if they even have a Zatanna project in the works. Not a bad pick though, Ron. Not a bad one at all. Another, in case you missed it, this is something that I actually missed. Apparently last year, Paramount greenlit a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin live action movie. So it's going to be rated R, and of course we have never seen a live action Last Ronin adaptation. This is like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in their darkest, like almost like the OG version of the Turtles when they were first introduced, as characters all the years ago. So, I mean, is this something that would interest you, John? Because this is, by the way, being produced by Walter Hamada. His 18 Hertz production banner, I think at Paramount, is it? Because Paramount are the ones that own the franchise. So, yeah, Walter Hamada producing Last Ronin movie. Do you think is going to lean into more of that dark action horror vibes that the Turtles were known for back in the day?
Yeah, I think this could be really awesome. I mean, it was announced. I was like, I know Last Ronin is a pretty well beloved comic story. So I think, yeah, I mean, I didn't know if it was going to be live action or animated. I also heard that they wanted the original April O'Neil from like the 90s movie to come back, to do this. So like, yeah, it's definitely, that like, I think it's a really interesting, story, and it is kind of like, I know it's the popular to do the old man blank trope. I mean, Spider-Man has done it. It initially started with like Old Man Logan, but like fucking Harley Quinn has done it. Spider-Man has done it. Michelangelo has done it. It's become like a trope of like, Old Man Blank, where it's like, oh, it takes place many years in the future, and the main hero is an old man, and it's one last thing before they crawl off this mortal coil. It's become a trope now, but like, as long as it's done well, then it's cool. Like Logan was great. I'm sure this could be awesome. As long as it's better than the fucking Michael Bay movies, it should be fine. But yeah, if they go back to like the continuity of the original ones, that could be really interesting. I don't think they'll do practical suits because that's really hard to do. But like, if they do in fact do that could be fun.
I mean, Man of Time was saying that it's been a year and we haven't really heard much. So should we even keep our hopes up? I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times when something like this happens where you announce a movie, it doesn't mean that they're going to straight away get it into production. They're probably still trying to figure their way around what they want to do with the actual story. I haven't heard any directors being brought on. So, I mean, those are the kind of steps that still need to happen. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that it's greenlit means they're want to do it, so let's see where it goes. But it would be interesting to see if they then turn it into a new continuity. And by the way, that first Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie was underrated. It was surprisingly good. The second one, not so much, but the first one I actually enjoyed. I'm going to defend that one. That one I think was a good one. But hey, you know what? That brings us to the end of the Quick Hits. That's all we had for Quick Hits today. Really, really quick. Really, really, well, hits. There were some hits, there were some misses, I suppose, but those were the quick hits. So let us know in the comments down below, guys, which was your favorite story. Are you excited that, or I guess not excited that Colin Farrell is in no rush to give us the next Penguin season? Or is this something that you were hoping we were going to get news now that the Batman 2 is getting closer to production, that maybe we were going to get a second season of the Penguin pretty soon? What do you think about James Bond? I mean, all the suggestions that you guys have for us, drop them in the comments down below, because then we can bring those back in and we'll get into your comments later in the week. But for the time being, that's gonna be it for the news segment of the show. And now we have to switch over to your favorite part of the show, of course. So now let's get into another episode of DCU Daily. So welcome on in to another fantastic jam-packed episode of your favorite show of the day, every day, 5 days a week. It's time to talk about DC, and we have got lots to discuss, as always. A lot to talk about that we mentioned. We were talking about it yesterday because there was so many things that I couldn't pack them all into yesterday's show, which was already 3.5 hours long. But then we got even more news today, John. Of all the topics that we have to get into, which ones excite you the most?
Mainly the big one, which isn't really exciting. It's just kind of sad, but like, it's interesting to talk about, in terms of how completely and utterly butt fucked the gaming industry is. But we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. Yes, there's actually 2 different gaming stories today. But you know what? We're going to start off with some stuff from the comics. Some bad news, actually. The DC has now officially canceled their ongoing Power Girl series. It ends at issue number 20. Now, of course, this comes at a time when they're relaunching a new Supergirl comic book series. So are you surprised that I mean, Power Girl were initially introduced as sort of a parallel Earth version of Supergirl in a manner of speaking. But do you think this means it's the end of Power Girl as we know it for a long time, or do you think they're just looking at the sales numbers and it just wasn't very good, so they're thinking, let's put this to bed for now and then we'll get back to it
let's
later?
just put it bed to now. Like, for now, it's Power Girl is too endearing of a character to like fully get rid of. But ever since they brought Supergirl back in like the early 2000s, it's been kind of hard because essentially Power Girl was the character, was the Supergirl character, because she was Supergirl of Earth 2. She just was Power Girl. She was pretty much the better version of Supergirl. But luckily Supergirl became like her own like proper character once New 52 hit. They did a lot more interesting things with her, and they kind of made her more like Power Girl, because Power Girl is a more like mature version. She's more aggressive and all that, and they kind of did that with all that. But yeah, I mean, we'll see her again. Power Girl's a great character. A lot of people like her, so she's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the new Supergirl series, they want to probably make some room for it, and Power Girl will be back. It's a popular character in the comics. I'm sure we will get more series from Power Girl. Now, the other news that this came out on the same post, actually, they were talking about how DC has also officially canceled their currently ongoing Shazam series, which ends at issue number 21. Another character that was a part of the DCEU that isn't necessarily making the move across to the DCU just yet. Are you surprised by this news that there will not be an ongoing Shazam series in the comics anymore either?
A little sad, but again, he's not going anywhere. So, it's just like I feel like. Here's the thing. The thing is, the comics industry does this a lot now, where they essentially like have all these series, they let it go, and then once sales start to dwindle, then they just scrap a bunch of shit, introduce new series, and then eventually bring these characters back. Because the thing is, number ones sell like hotcakes. So they try to do that constantly by bringing these characters back for number ones and then make a lot of money again, and then when it dwindles they cancel it and then bring it back again. Yeah
That's
so
that's
and
a bit
that's
of
usually,
a
and
herky
also
jerk kind of a thing.
yeah, it's a shame, but it's like that's how it is. But I mean, it's good that they're getting a lot of sales with Absolute Batman, because that's been like topping the charts for so long. So,
and we're gonna get another new Batman, Batman #1, which we talked about yesterday, which is gonna introduce a new. By the way, that new Batman logo looks amazing. That's probably one of my favorite Batman logos that they've ever put out, quite frankly. And I'll take it in blue if that's how I get it. But yeah, I mean, Warner Brothers definitely needs wins at the box office. But I mean, hopefully that's what they will get with Superman. Another series that was canceled is the Two-Face series, which was practically brand new. It only got to issue number 6, which is going to come out on May 7th. But then after that will be it. So 6 issues in, they're canceling the Two-Face show or comic book series. What do you think about that? Does this surprise you at all? I mean, Two-Face, again, a character that seems to have been overexposed in the movie world. We got another variation of him in the Joker movie last year, Joker Folly Ado. So I don't know if most people are swinging for a Two-Face comic book these days.
I mean, remember, Harvey Dent is a dick. But I think, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Two-Face to have his own solo series to last that long. So,
yeah. I mean, maybe they should, like, for these characters, just do limited editions, like where they don't really plan on doing anything more than like 5 or 6 issues. Yeah, enterprising. Everybody does love Batman, and all the Absolute books are doing well. Watcher, absolutely topping the charts for weeks and weeks in a row, or months and months in a row. It was the highest selling comic book of last year by far. But speaking of Warner Brothers games, John, as you mentioned earlier, of course, in the wake of President David Haddad's recent resignation announcement, I should say, insiders at Warner Brothers Games are now starting to open up and speak out that, since he's gone, and basically they're saying that he pretty much was addicted to chasing trends, and that's pretty much the big reason why all the Warner Brothers games in recent times have failed. And now that he's gone, now that David is no longer around, hopefully that will lead to more original ideas and more creativity, and hopefully a return to success for Warner Brothers Games. What are your thoughts on all these, the insiders over at Warner Brothers Games finally speaking out and speaking the truth now that their old boss is no longer around?
Well, I think what's that? Oh shit, it's a bus, and oh my god, they're throwing David Haddad under it. Welcome to our newest scapegoat, ladies and gentlemen. Like that's what it is. This is all, it's a scapegoat thing. It's like they're saying, oh, this guy is the reason why all these games have sucked, when it's just the AAA gaming and industry has just been like a shit show for the past like 5 to 10 years. So it's not just this one guy. They're gonna put some other asshole on top, and they're gonna make the same dumb mistakes by making all these decisions that fans don't want, and continue to make shitty games, because that's what it is now. because AAA games, like 90% of them are fucking terrible, and then we get blamed for not playing their shitty games instead of listening to the fans or actually putting in some fucking effort into gameplay or story or characterization. No, it's our fault because we don't want to fucking just kowtow to every bullshit decision they make. So
Yeah. No, I hear you. And yes, somewhere else to place the blame. By the way, Manos Time apparently saw Mickey 17. Was that like a special fan event, man? Let us know. Let us know what you thought about it, Manos. We are excited for that movie. That's going to be like one of those. That's the next big movie out of the current drought of big films, right? Like that's the next big one since Captain America came out. So I'm excited for that. And by the way, guys, as Antonio was telling you, hit the like button while you guys are here. And Enterprising earlier was saying how Penguin had his own series, so I'm not surprised that Two-Face was had gotten one himself. And Ra's al Ghul also had his own comic book series. I'm not saying you can't have secondary characters have their own comic book series, but maybe not have it be something that goes on for, an open-ended number of issues. Like, let's just make it a limited run. By the way, John, you sent me this photo earlier today, and then I was like, dude, I already found this like 2 days ago. So this is one of those,
Yeah.
oh my God, Luca Guadagnino was wearing a DC Studios sweatshirt, so he must be working on a DC Studios movie. So, I mean,
that's okay.
Did he
Here's the
just
thing.
go to the website and purchase one because he liked it? Like, I don't know.
Like, here's the thing, but why the fuck would someone like Luca Guadagnino fucking buy a DC Studios shirt? Like, here's the thing. Why DC Studios? Why wouldn't you buy if you want to like show off you like DC, why wouldn't you buy like a Superman shirt or a Batman shirt or a Wonder Woman shirt? Why the DC Studios logo? Nobody's fucking buying that shit. Nobody wants to buy the logo of the company.
Actually, it looks good to me. I would buy it. I would.
I mean, I want to wear like a character. Like, I don't want to wear the studio. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird, but like that seems more this seems like the thing that makes the most sense in regards to him working on Sergeant Rock. Not any of this other shit, but like this is the most epic.
And you know what? James Gunn and Peter Safran did not deny it. They didn't say no, he's not doing it when they were asked about it last week at that press event that we were talking about yesterday. So yeah, I mean, I guess this is more evidence piling up in favor of Luca Guadagnino actually. I'm still surprised that this is the next project he chose to do. He must really be passionate about it because he's not somebody who just willy-nilly goes and does a big studio film. Like, he's not somebody who's like a big studio director for. I mean, most of his movies are not big studio films. So, by the way, Manos Time saying Parasite is still his favorite film from Bong Joon-ho.
Although,
but
I do want to say something.
He did like
real
Robert
quick.
Pattinson's performance.
I'm looking at the DC shop site and they don't have this sweatshirt on their website. So
really?
They don't have the logo. I mean, they have like Nightwing, they have Batman, they have Superman, they have that's a really cool Batman Beyond one. They have like Riddler, Wonder Woman, all that shit, but they don't have the DC
That
Studios
is interesting.
logo.
I mean, Ron finds it interesting too. And you know what, Ron? Maybe that warrants some beard stroking too. Because, yeah, I mean, where else would he get it from at that point? Because they must be like, you know what?
There's a
we got these new
t-shirt, but it has
sweatshirts you
like
can get.
the Creature Commandos on it too. So like,
yeah, this is some insider merch. This is some so company swag. The Watcher saying Daredevil is going to be good, guys. You know what, Watcher? If you're saying it, then we sure hope that it will be, because we'll take your word for it over most of the scoopers out on the internet. Now, Colin Farrell, of course, we were talking about him earlier. He's not in a rush to do another season of The Penguin, but he is infatuated with the talent and just literally everything about Matt Reeves seems to be, perfect for what he thinks as far as Matt Reeves and Gotham and Batman go, because he thinks Matt Reeves is the GOAT. He's the GOAT in this world of Gotham right now. He's the boss, and he established this new version of Gotham with the Batman films, basically saying that Matt Reeves knows what he's doing. Trust the man, let him do his thing, let him cook. John, what do you think about this? Do you think his insistence that we trust Matt Reeves with the Gotham cinematic universe, or what, like he calls it, the epic crime saga, are we are we right to put our faith in Matt Reeves moving forward, considering he's taking 5 years to give us a sequel?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. It's just fucking write a little faster.
Yeah. I mean, I think look, he
Just
got
like
the
fucking like down like a bottle of Adderall and just like lock yourself in
just
a cabin in the woods for like 2 days and then like you should be good.
and then we can get a behind the scenes movie about that whole experience, because I bet that
Yeah,
would come up.
it'll
That would
turn
be
into
one
The
hell of an
Shining.
adventure. But yeah, I mean, look, Colin Farrell calling him the goat of the Batman universe right now. I mean, it makes sense because the Gotham that we got in the Batman is probably the most comic book accurate Gotham we have gotten in a very long time. So I don't mind it. I think Matt Reeves has done a great job so far. It's just the time. He's taken way too much time to work on the sequel, and I think we've stressed that enough times at this point for it to not be a surprise. But you still can't deny the fact that he's probably made one of the best Batman movies ever put to screen. So, agree with you there, Matt, or Colin, rather. Kristen Milioti, of course, still wants to do that crossover with Sofia Falcone, meeting maybe potentially her half sister, Zoe Kravitz, Selena Kyle, and she wants to do it in the Batman too. She's like, I think we could really get into some real shit. I mean, I don't know how much time there would be potentially to devote to a secondary story where Sofia Falcone and Selena Kyle are meeting up and going on adventures together. Maybe that's more for another TV show of its own. But she's, of course, Christian Milioti has been on the awards circuit recently, and she was at the SAG Awards, and so she must have been asked about this, and Deadline reporting that she still really wants to do this. Sean, do you think it's more and more likely that we will get that? Obviously, in the time since Kristen first talked about this, Zoe Kravitz was also asked about it, and she said, yeah, it would be great. But both of them have also said they don't really know how much they're going to be involved in the sequel yet. It seems like the details haven't quite been making the rounds with all the actors. So would you still like to see that crossover of a movie or TV show maybe? Or would
Yeah,
you like to see them be
just
a part of the Batman too?
not the Batman Part 2. That's not their story. It would be too far removed for I think what the story is for Batman Part 2, whatever that is. So maybe just like a movie or something, not even a miniseries unless it's like 3 episodes maybe. I just can't see that going on for too long, just like them causing chaos together. Like I don't know how much you could do with that. But I would like to see them for like a TV movie or a streaming movie, DC special presentation, or like a 2 to 3 episode miniseries, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah. By the way, the Watcher giving his review of Daredevil. I guess he got to see an early screening, or potentially. So, you know what? Good thoughts and good vibes so far. DC24, they can team up on me any day of the week. Yes, you should go sit in the corner. We do not take that kind of humor very lightly on the show.
TC24 wants to get fucking spit roasted by 2 ladies. Goddamn.
Yeah. Well, you know what, TC24, power to you. You do what you want to do. Patrick, in the meantime, hello, Patrick. He's asking us, what are your thoughts on some fans throwing shade at Starfire and Jessica Cruz because they're getting shown love, but not Wonder Woman? Well, we're going to get into that in a little bit about the Wonder Woman part, because there is news on the Wonder Woman character front, but I don't understand this. I mean, you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, literally, Starfire and Jessica Cruz do not preclude Wonder Woman getting a project.
Yeah,
I just think Wonder Woman, as far as a movie or TV show goes, they just want to distance themselves from what came before, because it was a big part of the DCEU. So
if we're looking at the 3rd most popular DC character, that's probably Wonder Woman. Behind the trendy is the most popular. So she's gotten a lot of love. She's gotten her own movie. She's gotten shows. She's gotten like a lot of unaired pilots. They've been trying to make them. Starfire has shown up like in 2 shows. Jessica Cruz showed up in 1 movie. I think we can afford a little bit more Starfire and Jessica Cruz action.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say. Like Wonder Woman, I
bet TC24.
I just think it's
more
like
of that
people are
action
just.
too.
I just think that people are just a little upset that like because of the news we'll be getting into, and all that. So I think I think I can see why people are mad because of what happened with the Wonder Woman game, but I think don't shit on other characters who are really good and that a lot of people like just because we're not getting more Wonder Woman stuff. Because we have Wonder Woman stuff. We've gotten 2 movies, one of them not very good, but we've gotten 2 movies. We got like, the JLU, the Justice League shows. We've got so many movies with her. Like the amount of fucking movies and shows where this character has appeared. How much has Starfire appeared? Like Teen Titans and Titans. Like
Pretty much,
those are the
yeah.
only things. Like maybe Young Justice. I don't
Teen
remember her in
Titans
Young
go.
Justice, but like
Yeah.
that's kind of it. And then Jessica Cruz showed up once, and then maybe in like because I know there's like DC Superhero Girls. That's like the web show, that was on like DC's website or something. Maybe like people show up in that, but like rarely do these characters show up. Wonder Woman has gotten a lot of love, yes, and not like the biggest mainstream media, but in terms of in general, yeah, Wonder Woman's got a lot of stuff behind her, while Starfire and Jessica Cruz just haven't. So I think it's their time to shine because they're both really good, interesting characters for different reasons.
Yeah. Good points by everybody in the chat. Enterprising making a good point. Wonder Woman needs Batman the animated series treatment seriously. She should have had a rogue gallery explored more thoroughly by now. I do think that's a good point, and hopefully we'll get that in the new DCU. The more badass the female characters, the better, says Patrick. You know what? And I bet you TC24 does agree with your take on that. The Watcher saying a solo Starfire show is hype. Also, Amethyst and Crush will be in the show. I can't wait. I really can't wait. And what the Watcher also saying, a lot of people are now basically blaming James Gunn for just picking random things to work on. I don't think he is, like the Watcher is saying. The world around the Trinity is what he wants to kind of build up, because we know the Trinity of characters, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, will get the attention once we get to like a Justice League movie. But it's good that they want to build up the world around them so it doesn't feel like it needs to be carried on the backs of the Trinity alone, which is what it felt like often the DCEU was. So I really like the idea of that they're building up all these other projects. Manos Time saying these same people are hating on Paradise Lost as the trailer cast and the showrunner is top notch. Those same people will change their minds. Exactly. And James Gunn didn't say that the Paradise Lost was on a back burner. He said they're still working on it. It's just they're trying to like find the right story to tell, I suppose. They haven't quite figured out all the details yet. So we know we're still getting more from the world of Wonder Woman in the new DCU. It's just not anytime soon, I suppose. But in the meantime, George Clooney, John, we've talked about how George Clooney continues to be pretty embarrassed about his take as Batman. So he recently said that he can never tell his son he was Batman and Batman and Robin. And to quote him, he said, "I'm like, I was Batman." He's like, "Not really," as in his son. And then he goes, "Oh, you have no idea how right you are. And if he knew I was that Batman, he'd never have respect for me." I mean, honestly, dude, I kind of like his version of Batman because it was part of like a movie that was full of some of the best puns I grew up with. But I understand it wasn't the best Batman movie, so I get it. And like the bat nipples and all the close-up shots for when they're getting dressed with like the belt buckle and the boots and the arm stuff. Yeah, iconic in all the wrong ways. But do you agree with George Clooney choosing to really, not tell his son, at least not in a serious way, that he was Batman? Or I guess his son probably is like, "Oh, you thought you were Batman. You weren't really Batman though. You just had the suit and the cowl, but you weren't really playing Batman."
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's right. I mean, he even said like, I know he showed up as Bruce Wayne in The Flash, which was fucking terrible. But even he said like, "Would you come back as Batman in the suit?" He's like, "Not for all the drugs in the fucking world. All the drugs in the world could not make me fucking play that role again."
Yeah.
So
yeah. By the way, Manos Time pointing out that in that press event, James Gunn did mention they're writing the pilot episode for Paradise Lost, so it's going really well. So there you go. I mean, you know what? Wonder Woman will be back on our screens soon enough. It's just a matter of time. Enterprising, my name is Freeze. Learn it well, for it is the chilling sound of your doom. That's the kind of classic writing that we saw that movie for. So good. so good. I love it. And I genuinely love that movie because of how much fun I have watching it. And I just laugh at the movie every step of the way because I love Arnold playing Mr. Freeze. But guess what, John? Mr. Freeze is coming to the absolute universe. Gotham in the grasp of Mr. Freeze. This looks insane. That doesn't even look like a human being to me. What are your thoughts on the absolute Mr. Freeze? This is from Scott Snyder, by the way.
Looks like a fucking demon. You know? Crazy. Like, looks like Slender Man or something.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. He looks like Slender Man. Like, he doesn't even look like a human being. I'm like, this is insane. DC24, this is why Superman works alone. Yes. Classic lines of dialogue from the movie that just made my childhood that much more fun. Five Ash Art in the chat now. Hello, Five Ash. How are you doing today? Red Letter Media did a commentary watching Batman and Robin. You know what? I need to go check that out. Because I bet you it is funny. I agree. I hope it is funny as the movie, if not more. Five Ash. But yeah, Absolute Freeze doesn't even looks like what was that movie that came out last year? It was on the boat. The last voyage of the Demeter. He looks like the character from that movie. What was it? Dracula? Was it meant to be? I don't know. I mean, he looks nothing like Mr. Freeze. But anyway, maybe that's the point. Speaking of Absolute, Flash is going to be making its way to the Absolute universe, and this is actually in a Philippine exclusive cover where he's running through an event in Manila. This is our Absolute Flash, John. Does it look like any other iteration of the Flash costume that you've ever seen before? Like you got the glasses and like the hair. It almost looks like Quicksilver in some ways, except the hair is not silver. But
yeah, I mean, they I mean, with the whole Absolute line, I did some digging on this, and apparently it's like the whole basis is like Darkseid created this world and took a fundamental aspect out of every hero. So this is a Flash that does not have Barry Allen. It's just Wally West. So it's just a teenage Wally West getting his powers, because like the whole thing is like Absolute Batman doesn't have his money, and Superman left his world, lived on his world, and then came to Earth, and that kind of thing. So it's definitely very it's an interesting idea. I just have no interest in it. But yeah, I think this is showing some love for Wally West, because I feel like DC has just kind of royally butt fucked Wally West ever since the New 52. So yeah, honestly, that's the only time I would agree with Alan Ritchson being fucking Batman is Absolute Batman, just because he's like this fucking gigantic behemoth of a man.
Yeah. But I mean, look, the Absolute series in general has been doing really, really well with audiences so far. So maybe Absolute Flash will follow suit. We're also getting Absolute Martian Manhunter this year, so I'm excited for.
I think we're getting Green Lantern soon. Yeah.
Oh, I moved on to the wrong post. Moving on to the next thing. Yes, we are getting Absolute Green Lantern. But Christopher Reeve's son, Will Reeve, of course, we know he's making a cameo in the new Superman movie, but he was recently asked, did you ever consider maybe following in your father's footsteps and playing Superman yourself? And to that he said, no, I've never gotten the ask. I learned at an early age from my parents, who were accomplished performers, that in order to succeed in entertainment, or really anything, but certainly in entertainment, you need to need the craft like you need air to breathe. It has to be a core part of who you are. For me, I acted in school plays and things, but that was just part of who I was. I didn't need it. I realized as an ambitious person, I should channel my energies into the things that I'm really passionate about, which is what led me to journalism. So I guess his parents taught him well, and he chased after what he, was most passionate about. And that wasn't acting, it was journalism. But what do you think about Will Reeve's, not choosing to follow in the footsteps of his dad, Christopher Reeve? And he's a very successful journalist, works for ABC News, but he's still obviously very proud of his legacy, or his family's legacy, with the Superman, the character, but he never had the compulsion to play Superman himself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he should. I don't think he has to do that. Just because his dad played him doesn't mean he has to. He's got his own thing. He's got his own life. He should have focus on that legacy instead of following the legacy of something he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, fair. By the way, Ron, there should be an absolute. Oh, so curious. We're gonna do that. Let's make that this Halloween edition of the show this year. I'm just gonna
Okay.
have like the big ass Batman logo like on my chest, and I'll have the cowl, and we'll just talk in our best Christian Bale voice the whole time. Like, welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. Swear to me. And then we'll just keep going. So yeah, absolute also curious. I wonder what that would look like actually. I genuinely am curious now. Because Ron wants you, John, to be the absolute Superman.
Mm.
But hey, you know what? Let's keep the ball rolling. David Cornsweat is a good choice, by the way. Speaking of David Cornsweat, Ron, a new official trailer is apparently being edited by James Gunn and will be released soon. Take this with a grain of salt because this post doesn't really cite a source and it doesn't talk about James Gunn mentioning it anywhere. So do you think they're just taking an educated guess here that they are probably working on another trailer for the movie? Because we haven't really gotten a full story trailer yet. The last trailer was a teaser trailer, so it showed us a lot of what the movie is going to look like, but it didn't really tell us much of the story, and we're still been just guessing at it. So are you surprised that they're working on another trailer for the movie?
No, I mean, I would imagine that it's probably going to come out maybe in, I think April would be a good one, maybe March. And then like the last one would come up in like June, something like that, like every like 2 months. Like, because usually the final trailer comes like right before the movie comes out. So I would imagine like we're probably going to get something in March, maybe like middle or the end of March, and then like middle of end of June.
Yeah.
We're probably going to
By the
get
way, weird question about
trailer.
Five Ash. I don't know what you mean by red lipstick. What does crypto have to do with red lipstick? Anyway,
I don't get it.
unless you're talking about like his privates, which would be an interesting way to refer to that. Anyway,
I don't know.
the Watcher's saying he heard it was April is when we're next going to get a trailer. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think, by the way, I don't think we're getting a new trailer at CinemaCon because CinemaCon is not a public event. Even if they play the whole movie, I don't think we're going to get a new trailer there. But April does sound like around the right time because that would enough time would have passed that they want to get the movie back in the conversation, because by that time you have a bunch of other movies ramping up their marketing campaigns. So I wouldn't be surprised that that's when we get it. But April will be here sooner than you know. I mean, we're already pretty much at the end of February, so that would place it basically a month and a half away. And yes, exactly, Tony. I think the next trailer has to give us an idea of the story, and I think that's what that next trailer will be. And Enterprising saying, "Yeah, it better be amazing." I agree with you. I mean, they need to keep this winning streak going with Superman. The marketing, especially if they're going to do this whole summer of Superman in the comics, like they gotta like make sure all the marketing for it is top notch, as it has been so far. Manos Time saying DC did say they will make a big splash at CinemaCon with the cast and everything, so they do have a panel on the 1st of April. They do. But the CinemaCon again is for the movie theater owners, right? So not everything that you see at CinemaCon is public information. Like they will have it for the people who are there, but most people who don't attend CinemaCon will get to see it. Sometimes the footage doesn't make it out to the internet unless it's leaked. So I don't know if we're going to get to see everything that they show at CinemaCon, but we'll find out about it. So we'll talk about it here. And if it does get leaked or it does get put out online, then we'll see. We'll talk about it then. But in the meantime, John, there is a rumor going around. So James Gunn and DC Comics president Jim Lee recently followed Henry Golding on Instagram. So people are now talking about how does that mean that Henry Golding could be Deathstroke in the DCU? Again, it's kind of like the look of what Nino wears a DC Studios sweatshirt. So is he directing a movie for the studio? I don't know. What do you think, John?
Get a life. Get a life. Like, first off, y'all need to just stop following people. Like, create like a fucking personal account that's not attached to your main account, and like just follow them if you want to follow them. Like, to be fair, like if I was somebody like this of like higher power of like a producer, I would be following like all the dumbest fucking shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I would be like if they're making a new like Batman movie, I'd just like follow like Pauly Shore or like fucking like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, just like the weirdest fucking people, and be like, "Well, maybe we're planning something. Maybe fucking an 80-year-old basketball player will be the next Batman." Like,
You
just to
just
fucking
randomly
troll
go
these
and like follow
douchebags who
Snooki
fucking
on Instagram
do
just
this
to see if
constantly.
people notice. Yeah, I would do that. It's like, like tomorrow you randomly follow Snooki, and then the next day you follow you follow like the star of like hip hop Atlanta. I don't know. It's there's all kinds of little games you can play with that. But yeah, I mean Henry Golding would be great as any character in the DCU because he is an amazing actor. I think he's had
Follow
some
Neil
bad
Breen and
luck.
Tommy Wiseau. Perfect, Caleb. You're right where I want you. You're right at that perfect thing I want. Amazing.
Antonio Baker saying, so naturally the jump to Deathstroke because he played my boy Snake Eyes. Yes, bad movie, great actor, should have had a better script, Snake Eyes. It didn't turn out well, right, Antonio? But it would not want him to see him as Deathstroke. I don't know. I think people are typecasting him just because he's played similar roles before. So it doesn't mean he wouldn't be a good Deathstroke. Five Ash, you're tearing me apart, Lisa. Yeah. Ryan Choi, wasn't he the Atom or meant to be the Atom in the DCEU? So
Yeah, that could work.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Well, Henry Golding, potentially Deathstroke. That's a bit of a leap considering you can follow literally anybody on Instagram. It doesn't mean you're casting him in a movie. But you know what, John? We also have to talk about the Wonder Woman video game. Apparently,
yes.
A few weeks after we found out that they were reworking and pretty much starting from scratch and throwing away most of what they were working on before, simplifying the game mechanics, they've killed the game. Warner Brothers Games is now shut down the Wonder Woman video game a few years after announcing it and spending literally hundreds of millions of dollars on it. And they also shuttered 3 different game studios in what's being looked at as a cost-cutting move. This is what the article in Variety says. They're making more cutbacks to try to get their gaming business back on track. So the Warner Brothers Games division is pulling the plug on the Wonder Woman title that had been in development for more than 3 years. The open world game was in the works at Monolith Productions, which is being shut down alongside 2 other studios, Player First Games and Warner Brothers Games San Diego. Now, WB Games in July 2024 had acquired Player First Games, the developer of free-to-play platform fighter game Multiverses, which also didn't do very well. And they already announced when we were last talking about this that they're going to be phasing it out. So this is what they said about it. The spokesperson gave the statement to Variety saying, as difficult as today is, we've remained focused on and excited about getting back to producing high-quality games for our passionate fans and developed by our world-class studios and getting our games business back to profitability and growth in 2025 and beyond. So keeping all that in mind, John, do you think it was the right call to just shut it down and stop sinking any more money into this thing, considering they'd already invested hundreds of millions of dollars and literally were still starting over as recently as a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, it made sense. I mean, the gaming industry, as I said, is like just a complete shit show right now. So it makes sense that they, this project that's been, had to be fucking scrapped and redone, and they already sank 100 million. It's like, and WB's cutting so many costs right now. They're like, let's not spend another 100 million on this. I mean, yeah, I had a feeling when they were like, "Oh, we're scrapping the whole game and starting from scratch." I'm like, yeah, I don't think that this is gonna see the. Yeah, pretty much.
You pretty much
But
predicted it. You were like,
hey,
you
remember
said it
they
at that time. Yeah.
but remember they got rid of Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme, which could have made them like hundreds of millions. But nah, let's not do that. Let's make like 90 million and then 30 million and then scrap everything and not make more money off that because we're idiots.
Well, I mean, it must have been really unplayable and just completely unreleasable, like the Watcher said.
Okay,
and
like
just scrap
Cyberpunk
it, you know?
2077 was fucking unplayable when it first came out. Like half the games that come out nowadays are unplayable because they announce a date and they have these strict guidelines, and then if they delay it, then the fucking fans are going to be pissed. But if they don't delay it, then they release a broken game and the fans are pissed anyway. So it's like, all right, fine. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, by the way, Unknown Gamer 37 in the chat. Hello. He agrees with the Watcher's take on this. Caleb saying, let's cancel complete films. Yeah. With the more of that sarcasm. Enterprising saying, well, if it had to be done, it had to be done. You know what? Fair enough. By the way, Five Ash, I don't agree with you on the Batman 2 getting canceled. I still would like to see more Robert Pattinson as the Batman. But hey, the Wonder Woman video game, it's no more. They completely killed it. John, you predicted it literally the few weeks ago when we talked about the news of them revamping the whole thing. You said this means this game's not going to see the light of day. And lo and behold, we now know that it's no longer in development. They completely shut it down, and also 3 studios associated with it. So, yeah, I mean, getting back to profitability is definitely a part of it, but I mean, it just seems like they could never quite figure this puzzle out. So, and maybe it's for the better. Maybe now they can put their energies towards other projects that will potentially lead to better results, and we shall see. But on the gaming front, we did talk about yesterday in more positive news, John, just for reference in terms of what DC is actually doing right now for games. James Gunn and Peter Safran do continue to have conversations with NetherRealm and Rocksteady about potentially developing new DC games, including maybe doing another like crossover sort of a fighter game, as well as, of course, continuing on with the Arkham Batman series with Rocksteady. So, on more of a positive note, are you excited that they are potentially working on these other collaborations while they're obviously, trying to close down what were essentially sinkholes for money, like the Wonder Woman game that they decided to shut down?
I mean, I was mentioning this yesterday. Um, Rocksteady is just a shit show right now. That it doesn't matter because none of the people that made the Arkham games good are there at the studio anymore. So it doesn't matter. They're just a vessel, and the vessel is filled with crap now. So it doesn't matter for Rocks. Oh, they made they made them back when they had really amazing, talented people working on them, but they don't have those amazing, talented people anymore. They have dumbasses that enlist fucking Sweet Baby Inc. to fucking make their fucking stories, and it's garbage. So NetherRealm is a little bit more hopeful, because I don't think they've gotten any like bullshit in recent memory, but because I mean the last few Mortal Kombats have been really good. But as long as it's like a simple like fighting game that like maybe could take place in the DCU, but like I can't imagine it would. But like, I don't know. I just don't think it's gonna be easy to make like these games in the actual continuity of the DCU. As long as it's like DC Studios, okay, that's understandable. But like DCU, I just can't see it. I can't because like I don't think there's just too many hiccups that can go wrong. And I think what's the Manos time? What's the Nemesis system again, please?
It's the one. Remember for the video game, that was the system they were trying to make work with the Wonder Woman, where you could kind of pick your own villain and turn them into like a ally instead.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I mean that could work. I mean,
they still have it. I mean, so they will still own the rights to that whole because they developed it as their IP. They can utilize it somewhere else, or they can maybe license it out to somebody. So I suppose Warner Brothers would still own the license to that. And Ron, I would love to see a Marvel versus DC game if that's what NetherRealm it essentially decides to do with whatever project they decide to collaborate on. That would be awesome. I think that would be a good game that a lot of people would sell a lot of copies. So we'll see. Well, in the meantime, while these DC games figure their stuff out, on the DC movies front, John, James Gunn recently, as part of that whole press event, he was asked about, hey, when are we going to actually get our first look at what Jason Momoa looks like Lobo? Obviously, we've got tons of fan art to fill an entire movie's worth of ideas, but what will it actually look like when Jason Momoa plays Lobo in the new Supergirl movie? And this is what he said. This is what James Gunn had to say in response to that question. It's probably going to be a while. We are not going to have to go shoot outside anytime soon, so we don't have to release a picture earlier than we'd want to. A very frank answer, but I appreciate the honesty because we know one of the reasons why they released all the Superman photos is because they were going to go film outside in Cleveland and Cincinnati for weeks and weeks, so they knew that it was going to get out there, so they wanted to get ahead of it by releasing the suit photo before they did that. So it makes sense that since they're not going to be doing a lot of that here, there's no compulsion to get ahead of any kind of leaks like that, because they know if anybody leaks it out, it's probably one of the people who signed an NDA who will get in a lot of trouble with the studio. So are you surprised by this? And then a second question would be, do you think that means we're really not going to see it until a trailer for this movie comes out, or are we going to get a look at the character before then?
Yeah, I don't think so, because like remember the Superman suit, when James Gunn released that, he only released that just when they started before they started filming outside, I believe. So they wanted to one up the people that were going to be taking pictures and one up those people because he knew there were going to be leaks and shit. So what he did was release the suit. This is what the suit looks like, and that's what we got. And I think, you know, he doesn't want to release that aspect soon, sooner than later. So I think, yeah, I think this makes sense. I think this definitely, I like how they're trying to keep things secret. Like they're trying to like have it be a surprise in this internet age. They're keeping it secret. So, and he's saying like we're not going to be shooting outside a lot because I mean the entire thing takes place in space on other planets. So you can't exactly, well, unless you're fucking like Tom Cruise who wants to fucking shoot in space because you're batshit. But like, you know,
Well, I mean, they're going to be shooting on a lot of volume sets, a lot of green screen sets.
volume sets,
so
green screens, the big
it makes sense.
studios in England and all that shit. So yeah. And he's probably like, I can imagine that like, you know, he's only going to go in without makeup, going in and out without makeup, and that's all we're going to get. If people are taking pictures in England, but I don't think we're going to be getting anything on Earth. And even if we are, they'll probably still film it inside because they really don't want to. Just like, I mean, they have the studio space. I mean, I prefer practical sets, but it is a little bit cheaper, and they want to keep things as under wraps as much as they can. So I appreciate that. So I think, yeah, let's not like jump the bridge, jump into the fold quite yet. So I think that's definitely a good course of action. Don't release that shit too soon. Don't release it tomorrow or anything like that. Like, release it when you need to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that because they're not feeling compelled to do that, it probably they can make more changes, and we're not going to be like, oh wait, but the character looked like that 6 months ago, and now he looks different. It just means the first time we're going to get to see the character, he's going to look like the version they always wanted us to see. And I think that's perfectly fair, and I just appreciate the honesty from James Gunn. He's like, you know what, we're not going to be shooting outside, so I'm not like in a rush to get this out the door. Like we don't feel compelled to get this out to the world, which is fair, completely fair, and yeah, I'm okay with that. Now, the last thing I wanted to get into before we get into our main story, which is the Sergeant Rock casting for today, we do have to talk a little bit more about the press event from last week, because we talked about this yesterday, and some of you guys were commenting, and I saw an interesting comment from one of you guys in the video from yesterday saying they've announced that they're going to be aiming to get out as many as 7 projects a year, 7 projects through DC Studios, that is. And so this was the paragraph that we were talking about from the Variety article. And essentially it says in there that Safran noted DC Studios is ultimately aiming to release 2 live-action films, 1 animated film per year, and 2 live-action and 2 animated TV series per year. So if you do the math, that's 2 live-action films, that's 2 then 1 animated movie, so that's 3. So 3 films in total, 2 live action, 1 animated. Then they're gonna do 2 live action TV series, that's 5, and then 2 animated TV series. Now, when you look at that, I mean, initially this sounds like it's a problem, but like, let me suggest something for a moment, John. I think this is potentially not a bad thing, right? Because when you look at what else James Gunn and Peter Safran said the other day, they're not just trying to have everything unified under the DC Studios banner in the sense that, oh, now everything is going to be part of the DCU. I think their goal is that everything DC, comics is under the DC Studios banner. Like over at Marvel, everything that Marvel does in media is under the Marvel Studios banner. Outside of the characters that they've licensed to Sony, everything else is part of DC Studios. So, Marvel Studios. So similarly, they want to do that here. And so to that end, I think what they mean more so than, more so than the idea that, hey, we're going to have 7 projects a year, it doesn't mean all 7 of those projects are going to be part of the cinematic universe, right? I think that's where people are kind of missing the point, that what they're really going for here is we're going to have 7 total things DC related coming out a year. And that could include DCU things, that are part of the cinematic universe, but that will also include other things. Like, for example, Batman. What's the name of the Batman animated series that is on Amazon Prime?
Cape
Why am I
Crusader.
Cape Crusader, Batman and Cape Crusader, for example. That's something that is an animated series, so that's one of 2 animated series a year, but that's also not something that is part of that is part of the DCU continuity, and yet it is something that would count as part of those 7 projects. And you'll have, like, My Adventures with Superman, for example. That's another one, right? Like, where it's animated, so it counts as an animated series that's under DC Studios, but it's not part of the DCU. And then Dynamic Duo, we don't know if it's gonna. They said they're not sure until they'll know the final script and how the story would work, if they were gonna make it part of the DCU. So that could be an animated movie, but it's not part of the DCU. Like, they've got for example, the Blue Beetle animated series, right? Like, that could be one of the 2, but like, it doesn't mean it's part of the DCU story. It might be, but it doesn't have to be. So that's how I read it. I mean, what are your thoughts on the idea? I mean, they're saying 7 projects total, but it doesn't necessarily mean all 7 will be part of the same continuity.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's still a lot, though. I still feel like it's a bit more like 2 live action and 2 animated too. That's a lot. And I feel like, because I mean, we're getting 3 soon, and we have like a ton of animated shows. We have
but
3
what I'm
going
also
on
saying
currently.
is we kind of already do, though, right? Like, because it's just they're consolidating everything under the DC Studios banner. Like, Batman, Cape Crusader is already ongoing. It's got multiple seasons greenlit. You've got My
Kite Man, hell
Adventures with
yeah.
Superman, Kite Man, hell yeah, Harley Quinn. I mean, these are just animated projects. Obviously, there's going to be live action stuff too, like Batman. The year that the Batman Part 2 comes out, or the Penguin sequel comes out. These are all things that it just happens to be that they're now all going to be DC Studios projects, rather than whether it's Elseworlds or DCU. They're not going to be like Warner Brothers projects. So what I'm saying is they're not going from 0 to 7. They're more going from like 5 to 7. It feels like I guess that's what I'm trying to make a point here. But do you agree with that? Do you think that's the intention here? Because that's how I took it when they talked about this.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not just DCU projects, then I think that's good. I think.
By the way, hello, Super Blink.
I think that's definitely a better course of action, because if it's all DCU continuity, that's a bit much, and you're already like cash cowing it, I feel. But if it's like just general DC stuff, then cool. I think, yeah, most of it isn't. If that's the case, then cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Watcher saying the animation is a smart move. You can show vastness a bit better and wipe and build faster, kind of like Clone Wars did. So you don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. And then the Watcher also saying that the Dynamic Duo will most likely end up being an Elseworld story because the origins are too different from the comics. Exactly. I think that's what we have always been anticipating. So yeah, I mean, a new series could be just a new season of a Harley Quinn show, like Manos Time is suggesting. So yeah, I think it could definitely, it's being taken out of context. Because when you see what else he said there in the article, they quote, I believe is it James Gunn they quote. So, because James Gunn has been, asked, like, are you just randomly working on stuff? Like, somebody comes at you with a great idea and you're like, you know what, we'll do that. Or do you actually have a plan? And he said that, you know what, like, while nothing will get a green light until there's a completed screenplay, it's almost impossible to make a movie with a script that you are writing on the run. But when something like a Clayface script comes your way, they're like, we didn't have any plans for making a Clayface movie, but their overall philosophy for guiding the creative choices has to do with, if you have a great script and we want to do it, like, let's do it. It doesn't need to be part of our cinematic universe, but it could still be something that we work on.
But
so
they are
not
like
saying
it,
no.
So that's an interesting case.
Well, they are, because I think that to me just means it wasn't something that contradicted anything they had in mind, right? Like, they're like, oh yeah, you know what, that would be great, let's add him in. Maybe when we see the movie, it'll be pretty standalone, right? Like, where it doesn't really need to have any connective tissue to the larger DCU. It just means there's a version of Clayface that exists in that continuity. So I think maybe that's where they're going with this. TC24 saying My Adventures with Green Lantern and My Adventures with Superman universe, so it will definitely just be DC in general. Exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll have these other little pocket universes, like the Batman universe, like the My Adventures universe. You obviously have the DCU. By the way, yes, hello Elite Easy E in the chat and Super Blink. You guys are thanks for joining in and chiming in the chat. Manos Time saying they already have 3 movies coming out next year. Plus, we don't even know if Sergeant Rock is Elseworlds or DCU. Nothing has been confirmed yet. Exactly. So Sergeant Rock, Clayface, Supergirl, 3 movies, 3 loggers. And then you also obviously have a new season of the first season of Lanterns, and then a new season of Batman Caped Crusader. So if you count those alone, that's 5. And but potentially more things even beyond that. So I mean, you've already kind of gotten to that number pretty quickly, and half of those things, or almost half of those things, weren't projects that were initiated under the DC Studios banner. They're just sort of been absorbed by the DC Studios banner now. So where the Cape saying this sounds like a free for all for anybody who wants to write or direct movies and TV for DCU. Well, no, but see, the distinction is it's not just a DCU. It just means if you bring a great story to them, they have the right to say yes to you and then tell you to go work on it. I think this is a good thing in the sense that they're not going to restrict themselves to making everything part of the DCU. It means other great ideas can still exist, and you don't have to kind of line up with the main continuity. I think that's a good thing. And ultimately what they're going to be judged by, Peter Safran and James Gunn, is the filter that they use. So they don't just greenlight everything. As long as everything is quality and people love to go see it and spend money, and obviously the studio doesn't waste a lot of their money investing in these projects, as long as they're financially successful, as long as they're critically successful, what else could you possibly want? I feel like 6 or 7 projects spread out across animation and television in the movies and live action television in the movies. It's not as many as you think. Back in the day, studios would release dozens of movies a year. Nowadays, studios don't release enough movies to fill out a whole calendar. I mean, we review a new movie every week, and there's weeks sometimes outside of the summer and the Christmas time when we will have no big movie coming out. So I'm like, give me more. I don't think we've hit the ceiling yet. And then if you look at what Marvel Studios is doing these days, I know it's maybe not the best example, but they're putting out multiple series and movies and TV specials and stuff. I think it's possible. X-Men 97. You've got the animated Spider-Man show that we just finished watching the first season of. That's got 2 more seasons. So the more we think about it, it's not as bad as maybe it sounds at face value, especially because it doesn't mean you're getting 7 projects in the DCU every year. Is it possible that one of those years, maybe all 7 things are part of the DCU? Maybe, but it's unlikely. So I just look at it and say, you know what? I think this just means the DC Studios is up and running as a proper studio. It's not just a name and an office that they gave them. No, DC Studios is a real deal, and it's gonna do pretty much everything at the same level as the Warner Brothers Pictures does, kind of like what Marvel Studios does, which is at the same level as Walt Disney Pictures and stuff. So I like it. And maybe that means we'll get other filmmakers coming in with ideas that as long as they have a good script for it, they don't need to.
So I'm going to start making a script, and I'll just deliver it to James Gunn, see what happens.
Well, first you need to get some representation, and then you need to find your way into James Gunn's office, or to get a.
And I'll just be like, "Hey, James,
somehow.
I know you're married, but and then I just I have a dress, and I'm just eking it up, I have a fat ass. I'm just saying, if you want something, I'm just. I mean, that's how you get ahead in this business, right?
No, I don't think you're supposed to be doing that anymore.
But I'm consenting to it, so it's okay.
Okay. I don't know if that makes it any more. Whatever. I'm just not going to address it. You know what, John? The big thing that we're here to do today is fan casts for Sergeant Rock, and all you guys in the chat are already talking about Sergeant Rock. So let's get to it, shall we?
Pause.
Pause.
The Watcher, naughty boy. Elite Z, maybe in his purple hair days before he ran a studio.
Yeah. And on that note, let's talk about Sergeant Rock, shall we? Luca Guadagnino, who has, I guess, a rare commodity in the DC Studios sweatshirt that I would like to have one of. Please do send me one, James Gunn, if you're watching. And I'll give you my address. Just slide into my DMs. But Sergeant Rock is the movie that Luca Guadagnino is supposedly attached to be working on, and there is a writer, his writer from the movie Queer that he last worked on. He's working on a script. Daniel Craig is no longer going to be Sergeant Rock. He's not going to be in the movie. He stepped away. He was never confirmed, as Peter Safran said. And then James Gunn corrected him. Well, we never said anything about it. But then they went on to say they are working on a script. So we know it's in the works. We know they're aiming to shoot, at some point this year. So that means they need to cast somebody for the lead role in the movie. And while Jeremy Allen White might be somebody that they were considering and stuff, I wanted to kind of do our own little fan casting. So right there at the bottom, it says Karl Urban's name. So he's definitely one of the names, John. But as always, you've picked out 5 of your favorite picks for Sergeant Rock's lead. So let's dive into those. So where would you like to start?
I would like to start. You'd start with the fucking one that we have on the goddamn thumbnail. Karl Urban. Like, okay, this one's the obvious choice because I mean, he's usually playing gritty soldier-esque characters. I mean, he's on The Boys. That's kind of an easy thing to do. A bit like so, and I mean, they're filming this. Like, all of these great actors are going to be like moving on to stuff. So it's like I understand he's Johnny Cage now, so it's unlikely. But I just think Karl Urban would be.
I mean, I
He
think
is a
it's
little
more
bit
likely,
older.
actually, but
He is a little bit older. Yes,
yeah.
he is the oldest. Well, tied with the oldest that I have is 52. Now, if it's a one-off, then it's then it's fine. I don't think I can't imagine they'll do like multiple Sergeant Rock movies. It's probably gonna, especially with someone like Luca Guadagnino who wants to move on to like other artsy stuff that he likes to do. So, um, I can, you know, I can see him like, he's not like the biggest guy ever. Like I would want someone bigger, but I think
But dude,
like the personality,
Judge Dredd. Come
he's
on,
still
he can
pretty,
pack
but yeah,
on
he's still like he can pack on
the
muscle. He
muscle.
can be big.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see him as Judge Dredd again, but like Sergeant Rock, I think like he's just got the face for it. He's got the attitude. I mean, he usually plays like really heavy, like grizzled characters. I'm
Mhm.
not saying he only does that, but like, I think well, allegedly, I don't think those were ever confirmed either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Karl Urban would be awesome. He just like dude screams that character, I feel like.
Yeah. And look, I think Elite Easy, the whole point that he's not become all of a sudden a beloved hero is the point that they're trying to do this where he's not even your traditional superhero. I don't think Sergeant Rock really has any powers, right? So this would be one of those comic book related properties that isn't necessarily like about a superhero, but it's connected to that world. So I wouldn't mind seeing it, and I think Karl Urban would be a great pick. And obviously, when you get a filmmaker of the caliber of Luca Guadagnino interested, then as long as you can come up with a script, like it's like Keanu Reeves was saying, we pitched the idea to James Gunn and Peter Safran, and they said, well, you know what? If you can work on a script and you can sell us on a really good story, then we'll give you the green light. So they're doing their thing. And similarly, Luca Guadagnino probably said, I want to do this. So they were like, you know what? Grab a screenwriter and then get us a script. So I think that's where we are at with this. But yeah, I mean, great summary there about the character. Antonio, by the way. And yeah, I mean, if you guys want to learn more about it, Sergeant Rock, I think we have done a couple of episodes about the character in the past, so you can scroll through our library. But in the meantime, John, you have a few more picks. So Karl Urban,
I do.
If that's your starting point, I wonder where you're going next.
I'm gonna go a little bit younger. And the next guy, everybody wants him as Batman, but I think he'd be a pretty shitty fucking choice for Batman. I think he'd be better as Sergeant Rock. And I'm going with Alan Ritchson because Alan Ritchson would be so much fucking better as Sergeant Rock. It's like not even funny. Bro is already playing a soldier with like no emotion whatsoever. Perfect for Sergeant Rock. So I think like if you want to push like the over exaggerated comic bookiness of the character, then I think Alan Ritchson does that because he's already playing an
I mean, he already auditioned for that in
exaggerated
this
character.
movie. Like he was killing Nazis already in a
Yeah.
League of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly
the
Warfare. You're
Ministry
thinking
of
of League
whatever.
of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
And
It gets
anyway,
I don't blame you.
it
I
gets
don't blame
confused.
you.
Yeah.
It gets confusing. You're fine. But I need to correct you before the fucking chat is like, actually, so I have to do it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But,
I appreciate the correction. I apologize for my mistake.
But Alan Ritchson, like this, I think he could push the over exaggerated comic bookiness that you could use for a Sergeant Rock movie. Like he's a really big guy. He would just be like he's like over 6 feet tall, and he like you can get like a bunch of smaller guys. You could even put him like on platforms to like make him like seem even big. Like he's this larger than life character. It's like, as I said before, why do we want to see a movie of this guy? How could you differentiate it from all the other war movies? So I think no, he's not Hispanic, so I don't think that would work. But I mean the thing is, Sergeant Rock has been through fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be Sergeant Rock. Like, I don't think that's too big. But we've gotten a lot of iterations of the character over the years where he's smaller, somewhere he's bigger. But I'm just talking about in a movie standpoint to really differentiate it from other war movies. Get like a big guy to like have a touch of like comic book like style to it. So I think Alan Ritchson could do that really well. He's already playing a soldier on Reacher. I think he would fit into that more so than Batman. I just can't see him as Batman because I just think doesn't have that much depth as like in his acting skills. So I just think Sergeant Rock would be a lot better for him than Batman.
I think it's a more natural transition for him playing that role, going from Reacher and what he has done before. But at the same time, I mean, he publicly has been campaigning for Batman, so I don't know if he'd want to settle for Sergeant Rock, because obviously if Sergeant Rock is part of the same cinematic universe, then it kind of precludes him from being considered for Batman. So that would be something where I'm sure, if conversations were to be had, I'm sure Alan Ritchson would try to impress upon the DC brass that he wants to play Batman, and how can they make that happen. But this wouldn't be a bad role, and who knows, maybe he can become a key iconic part of the DC universe, where we have seen clearly, I think when the first Suicide Squad movie came out, nobody thought Harley Quinn was going to become the most popular character coming out of that movie, but obviously that's what happened. So we have seen surprises happen. I mean, and it could be that if Alan Ritchson becomes a great Sergeant Rock, that he could become a big part of the DC universe, and he ends up like showing up in other projects afterwards and sequels. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. And he has played, the Hawk and Aquaman before. So, or no, not Aquaman, but he played Aquaman what character was he on Titans? Was it the Hawk or
Titans? Yeah, he was Hawk.
So did he voice Aquaman? I'm forgetting. I mean, the Watcher.
He played Aquaman on Smallville. Bro has played
Smallville.
Two different superheroes already in the DC universe. So
well, there you go. I mean, I guess,
and it was funny because it was like
step up.
His
thank you, man.
episode was really popular as Aquaman. So like, we're gonna give you a spinoff, and then they're like. And then they gave him the call. Yeah, you're not fit to be a leading man. So they cast Justin Hartley instead, who would then go on to be Green Arrow. So it's like, whoops-a-doodles.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I did want to. By the way, I wanted to take a minute here to switch over quickly to discuss the passing of Roberto Orci, which was just announced. This is breaking news. I think one of you guys mentioned in the chat, and I want to mention Enterprising. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. Roberto Orci, who was, of course, famous for his work on Transformers, the Hawaii 5-0 series, and of course the new version of Star Trek. I would always remember seeing his name the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies aren't necessarily the best representation of the franchise, but they're still pretty serviceable. I like them. And, Roberto Orci was a big part of the writing staff for all those projects. So at age 51, no less, that's a very young age. They say here that he was born and raised in Mexico City. Orci moved to the U.S. with his family when he was only 10 years old. He started off as a writer-producer on Xena, the Warrior Princess, and Hercules, the Legendary Journeys. For most of his career was partnered up with Alex Kurtzman. So yeah, I mean, Alex Kurtzman's still like the head of Star Trek, right? Like he's still over there. So
Yep.
the cause
Unfortunately.
of his passing, it looks like, was due to losing a battle with kidney disease. That's not fun. Kidney disease can really
No.
suck the life out of you. And he was only 51 years old, passing away in his home in Los Angeles. So yeah, I mean, 2 decades of work on movies and
sad.
TV.
I'm gonna say this. It's sad that happened. It's sad he had to deal with that. I'm not gonna act like I'm gonna pretend his work was good. I'm gonna say that, like, I'm sure he was a nice dude. I'm sure, like, he was surrounded by friends and family. Hopefully he was at least kind of comfortable. Maybe he was on a lot of drugs. Like, let's hope. Like, because that really sucks. But at the same time, I'm not gonna pretend like. I'm not gonna act like, oh yeah, he was the great. Like everything I've ever seen from him has been terrible. Like that's. I'm just gonna say that now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's sad to see someone pass away. But I'm not gonna act like I'm not gonna be a great remembrance of his work when I have liked nothing that he and his writing partner have done over the course of their respective careers. So I'm sorry that he passed away. I'm sorry to his friends and family, but I'm also not gonna act like what he did was good. So I would want to say that. Maybe I'm a dick for saying that too soon, but just wanted to voice that as well.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, his friends and family in this time of mourning can find some solace in that. The work that he did is still significant in the sense that a lot of people first got introduced to Transformers and Star Trek through the work through the movies that he wrote, and Hawaii Five-0, also a show that's still running. By the way, when you guys were mentioning in the chat, there was another update from Lucasfilm about Kathleen Kennedy stepping down. I know we talked about it yesterday. I don't know if there has been a new update there. If there is one, we'll dive into it. Or actually, you know what? Hold on. I think I might have found something here. Let's kind of quickly mention it, and then we'll get back to the fan casting. So this is from one of the reporters in, I think, Variety, is it? Or Puck News, where they were mentioning that Kathy was actually planning to leave last year and had even set up an exit interview with a journalist, but she decided to stay for one more year. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like she might have already been gone if it wasn't for, I guess, reasons unknown as of right now. And it looks like this is because they're looking to do a whole relaunch of Star Wars, which is something you speculated about, John. So yeah, it looks like that's the direction they're headed in after the Andor wraps up its next season. Mandalorian will be done with the movie. It seems like they're not necessarily going back there. So with a new trilogy of movies and anything else that might come from here onwards, it looks like that's the direction they want to go in, and doing that under new leadership seems to be the way to go. So, well, there you go. That's the update. What else did we miss anything? I don't know if they have a plan for transitioning to a new president yet, but anyway, let's get back to the fan casting, John. So as we have been doing, Sergeant Brock, we've gone through a few different names. I think Alan Goodson is a great pick. Karl Urban obviously is a good one as well. Who else do you have up your sleeve for a potential fan casting for Sergeant Brock?
Well, the next one I have is another Batman fan casting, because I think they're better as gritty soldiers because they've played gritty soldiers before. The next one I have is, in fact, Jensen Ackles. Okay, I might not love The Boys. One of the few great things from this past season was Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy. I love, considering he was pretty much the runner-up for Captain America, one of the runners-up. The fact that he finally got to play a Captain America pastiche is really fun and interesting. So, I think Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even Sylvester Stallone were all attached.
Like the big action stars of the 80s and 90s. Yeah.
This is all the way going back to the 80s. So they've tried to develop a Sergeant Rock movie in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And so obviously those were the big stars of the day. So yeah. By the way, Antonio's saying that Jensen Ackles is a one-note actor. I don't know. Do you agree?
Which is why he would work as a one-note character. I mean, I would say Sergeant Rock is one note, but he's just a soldier. You can kind of throw in some shit in there, but he's the thing is, that's exactly why he wouldn't work as Batman, but he would work as Sergeant Rock. There's not a ton to Sergeant Rock. He's just a soldier. maybe he can deal with some, but this shit isn't Saving Private Ryan. Like, it's not gonna have like in-depth character stuff. It's gonna be a
Right.
comic book movie first and foremost. Well, a war movie first and foremost, then like a comic book movie. So exactly. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. He,
So I think that works. And I think, I wouldn't say he's totally one note. He has some acting capabilities, but he's not like, Daniel Day-Lewis or anything. But I think he would work. I mean, he's got the chops for it in terms of playing a soldier, similar to Alan Richson, and I think he's good at playing grizzled characters, much like Sergeant Rock is. So,
yeah. I think that's a fair point. By the way, the Watcher suggesting that in the Hollywood Reporter article, they were saying that Disney wanted Kevin Feige for Star Wars, but he's working hard on Marvel, so now they're looking at Dave Filoni and Favreau to co-run the studio. Well, I mean, if you guys were watching yesterday's show, towards the end of the show, we did a whole breaking news segment on it, and we talked about all of those possibilities. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's natural to consider Kevin Feige moving over to try to like revive Star Wars, considering his record with Marvel, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau would be prime candidates considering what they have done. I just wonder if they'll be great picks for studio executives because they're not really business-minded people. Maybe they need to bring in and pair up somebody who's more of a business-minded executives alongside him, like Peter Safran and James Gunn with DC. So, and we talked about that in detail. Actually, there's a whole we took that whole segment on the show. We put it up as its own video. So if you haven't already, go check that out. I think we had a whole half an hour long conversation about that, and all you guys in the chat were chiming in, so that was pretty good. But yeah, definitely check that out. But in the meantime, John, as Ron said, so far he likes Alan Ritchson and Karl Urban the most. So Jensen Ackles is not getting a ton of love, but you still have a couple more names. So who else do you have on the list for Sergeant Rock?
So my next person I have is the youngest one out of all of them. Jensen Ackles was 46. Alan Ritchson was 42, by the way. The next one I have is Scott Eastwood at 38, if you want to go someone a little bit younger. So if you want to have someone, because the thing is, if you want someone a little bit more athletic, but I mean, his dad was Dirty Harry. Maybe, he can work as Sergeant Rock, because I think Clint Eastwood was another name that was like considered for Sergeant Rock back in the day, but he was just too old by that point when they were making the movie. But like, honestly, I could see this working. He is a little bit smaller, but like he could pack on some muscle. And the thing is, again, he's not like this hugely amazingly super talented actor. Like, I'm not gonna say he's bad. It's just like, he's played soldiers and he has the DC prowess. He played a soldier in DC already.
And you know what?
Boom,
and he has said that for Suicide Squad, they initially considered him for a different role. Like, he might have played a potentially more recognizable character in that Suicide Squad movie, but then they ended up like giving him a pretty generic character. So
yeah,
this wouldn't be his, like you said, his first brush with the DC brand, and he's played a lot of like soldier-like characters.
Maybe he wants some redemption, and he can play like a more substantial character now and be a leading man rather than be the right-hand man of Rick Flag Jr., aka Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah, or be in the Fast movies, like,
and he's right there with The Rock. So it works. Sergeant Rock, The Rock, boom, there we go, perfect.
And perfect.
He's right played there. A lot of soldiers. Like, Pacific Rim, he was also in Fury with another David Ayer film as a soldier. Pacific Rim, hello. So
yeah. Ron's not a big fan of the idea, but Enterprising saying it would make some sense. I think this would be a good turn for him. Like, this would be a chance for him to potentially turn into a big movie star. Like take that opportunity and run with it, right? Like, it's a movie where you're working with a great director who can, but and he's a great actor himself. I think he's underrated. There's more to him that we have maybe have seen so far, and some of his work is fantastic, and most people don't pay as much notice. But when you put him in a big budgeted movie like this, maybe that will be his time to shine. In the meantime, by the way, the Watcher continuing on to say the article says they will use executives to run the business stuff, just like John Favreau and Dave Filoni run the creative side. So you're talking about Lucasfilm, right? So that would make.
We're still talking about fucking Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Well, the Watcher wanted to clarify. But thanks for the updates. Simon Kinberg could potentially also be one, by the way, Watcher, because I supposedly was working on a new trilogy of movies, and he was like in charge of the X-Men with Fox, so he could come over and do Star Wars. Maybe he's got a lot of fandom for the franchise within him that he can exercise. But John, I believe you have one more name, or maybe a couple of more names for us. Where do we go next for Sergeant Rock?
Although I did want to mention this one quick thing from Antonio. I couldn't fit your name. I apologize, but it was a long thing. But he's like, full disclosure, I have never watched Thor Ragnarok. I saw the first 10 minutes of the movie, and Kate Blanchett, her dialogue reminded me of a Jean-Claude Van Damme villain. That's how trash it was. Antonio,
I
we
enjoyed
love you
it.
so
I
much.
had fun with it.
But vindication. Anyway, I mean, like, if you think that's bad, try Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor 4, more Thor. But the next person I have, the Venom himself, Tom Hardy. Why don't we? I think this is the least likely choice because I feel like he's kind of above it a little bit. He's the best actor out of all these guys.
Right.
Like, he is genuinely a good actor, and I think he would want to. Yeah, but he's busy with like Punishers. That like the Venom movies are done, so he's like done with comic. So he might not be wanting to go back to comic book stuff, and with all of that, he is the first. He was like the first guy you think of in terms of like the most grizzled guy, like super duper, like a man's man. Like, he should be a toxic masculine man, but he isn't toxic at all. Like, if you watch him in interviews, he's like a genuinely,
he's very humble, very reserved. Yeah,
he's private, reserved, but he's not like a dick. So like, he's great. So I don't think he would. I don't necessarily think he would be seen as like above this or not, but I think maybe he would want to take a break from comic book stuff after doing 3 Venom movies. So maybe take a break. But Sergeant Rock, I feel like, is more up his alley. It's like more grounded. It's a war movie, and he's done like war-esque stuff before. So I think maybe, and Luca Guadagnino is a more like artsy director, and so I think that might grab him more. So there's like pros and cons to Tom Hardy. I think he, like, if you want to really have like a real, if you want a war movie, a comic book war movie, get one of those guys. But and I'm not saying Karl Urban's bad. It's just like Tom Hardy's just so excellent. Like, he's the best one out of all these guys. But I just think, like, if you really want to go like make it like maybe more along the lines of Saving Private Ryan, like a really like rough character piece of like Sergeant Rock, and like in the backdrop of World War II, in the backdrop of the DCU, if they are making it canon and not an Elseworld story, then Tom Hardy is your guy. Like Alan Ritchson and Jensen Ackles, I feel like they could be like just like one note guys. He's a soldier. That's it. That's all you need to do. I feel then the next up would probably be Scott Eastwood. You could probably do a little bit more stuff with him. He's probably the next best actor. So, I think that could also work. Like something a little bit more, not too much, but a little bit more. But then if you want something really good, like more in-depth stuff, I think Karl Urban and Tom Hardy would be. I can't see Dan Stevens as Sergeant Rock. I feel like he's just too good looking. I mean, Alan Ritchson and Jensen Ackles are good looking, but I feel like they're the more grizzled type of good looking. I don't think Dan Stevens has that grizzled kind of good look. Joel Edgerton could be really good. That's another really good choice. But yeah, I think Tom Hardy, he's 47. If you want to go on the younger side, go with Scott Eastwood. If it's like one note, not one note. If it's a one-off, then you could go with one of the older guys. But Tom Hardy would be really fucking good. I think, like, if you want to go really reach above and beyond with this and get a really good actor, get an A-lister. Well, I don't know if he's an A-lister, maybe like a B-lister. Then Tom Hardy's your guy. I feel like that would be a really awesome movie to do something more in depth.
Yeah.
Than
I mean, and he's got plenty of experience.
The other actors I've said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he's got a lot of experience working in comic book movies, so he knows like what that experience is like. He can do a promotional tour and not get burned out by it. He probably wants to take a bit of a break from doing like a big superhero movie, but he's also not one to shy away from working on a lot of projects. Like, he's not somebody who's like, I'm only going to do 1 or 2 movies a year. So I wouldn't mind seeing Tom Hardy. I think, and you can't go wrong. That man is one of the most talented actors out there. Like, whether it's casting him as the next James Bond or as Sergeant Rock, I think those will all be great roles for him to take on. But that means we've gone through all 5 names, John. Is that it? Is that all we've got for today?
I wanted to throw in a bonus one, like not really talk about him much, but we've been talking about him a lot. We did like a casting with him for him playing all different types of characters in the DCU, but honestly, this one could work. He lost a lot of muscle, but I think he could still do something like this, and that's Dave Bautista. I think Dave Bautista could be a good Sergeant Rock. I mean, he's got the look, he's got the vibe. Yeah, Steven Yeun. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't see Steven Yeun personally, but like he's invincible, so he's doing that right now. But Dave Bautista, I think, would be a good choice. Like, I think there are other better characters for him to play, but I think Sergeant Rock. I mean, he's kind of with Scott East, like in between Scott Eastwood and like Karl Urban and Tom Hardy. I don't think he's as good as Karl Urban and Tom Hardy, but I don't think he's as one note as some of the other guys are. He's like right in between there. So I think he could bring a little something more than like Alan Ritchson and Jensen Ackles and Scott Eastwood, and give us a little bit more, but not quite as much as Tom Hardy, because Tom Hardy is just so fucking fantastic as an actor. So yeah, I think just Dave Bautista, throwing him a bone, just another recommendation essentially. So that was just my bonus pick of.
He might be like the perfect halfway mark, right? Where you want to get somebody who's got star power, who doesn't need to be the best actor in the world, but who's underrated and who's maybe looking to already join the DCU because he's called James Gunn multiple times, and they're just like, we're just looking for the right fit, you know? Like, he was eventually going to end up in there. So, yeah, Dave Bautista, give me more Dave Bautista. I've been a fan of him since the early 2000s, back when he was in WWE.
I want to see this guy
in
good movies and not like fucking like schlocky direct-to-video crap, like fucking Stuber and the fucking upcoming Paul W.S. Anderson movie he's doing. What was that one? Killer's Game. Like, I want to see him with good stuff. Like,
he was an underrated part of Glass Onion. I enjoyed his performance in that movie
because it was very different. I mean, he was playing, not a good movie, but he was good in it.
Very off type for him, but he did a good job. Enterprising asking, how young is too young? Could Taron Egerton be looked at as well? Ron saying in early 20s is maybe too young. I mean, Taron Egerton is not necessarily.
I think you're talking about Tokyo Vice, early 30s at this point.
Are we talking Tokyo Vice, Taron Egerton? Is that what we're talking about? I don't know. He might be a bit too young.
He's a little bit too young, and I don't think he's got like. I think he's too like suave a bit.
Yeah.
He's too like classy.
That's exactly it.
I see him, and and the thing is, I know he's a better actor than this, and he's done a lot of great stuff. But like, he has a certain swagger to him, a certain suaveness that, like, even when he's playing someone who's not very suave, but like
Enterprising saying Kingsman. So Taron Egerton is the one from the Kingsman. So he was. What was that movie that came out recently on Netflix? I saw it and I reviewed it. Is that Taron though? Is
Baby Driver. The Baby Driver.
Baby Driver. Okay.
You're thinking of oh my god, I can see his face. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's
Ansel Elgort.
Ansel Elgort. That's fucking. Yeah, that was his fucking name.
Never mind. Taron Egerton is, of course, yes, from Carry On, which is the movie that's on Netflix. I saw that last year. Kingsman. Yeah, you know, I can kind of see it. I can see it. I think he can pull off somebody in their 30s. Isn't he in his 30s practically?
Yeah, around there.
Manos, Carry On. Yeah, Taron Egerton could work. He's on the edge, though. I think I would, if you want to maximize what you want to get out of this character and kind of go really in that direction, like where the comics go, then maybe you go with somebody like, I think Karl Urban would be a good pick. He's on the older side, but I don't know if Sergeant Rock is meant to kind of carry a whole franchise for 3 movies, right? So you can easily go and just do 1 movie and then just have him play bit parts and supporting roles. So for me, Karl Urban is still the best fit. John, who was your favorite pick?
I would say I would like to see, I think depending on the type of movie you want to make. If you want something with a little bit more depth, I would say go with someone like Dave Bautista or Tom Hardy. I think Dave Bautista is probably the best choice. But if you want to go with something a little bit more one note, then Alan Ritchson is probably your guy.
Okay. All right. All good picks. Joe Manganiello, Manos Time saying, since he won't be Deathstroke, and he did say he's friends with Gunn. Yeah, I mean, Joe Manganiello could potentially be it too. I just don't think he's gonna be able to carry a whole movie. Jokingly, Chris Evans if he wasn't busy. Oh well, I think Chris Evans is gonna be busy with the Avengers for a little while, but yeah. All great names. I think whether you go with Alan Ritchson or whether you go with Karl Urban or even Dave Bautista or even Scott Eastwood or Tom Hardy. I mean, this is an all-star list. Even the Jensen Ackles in there, you've got everybody brings something different to the table, and I think they can all be great Sergeant Rocks. So we'll just have to see which way they go. Right now, they're still writing a script, so until the movie gets greenlit, this is all speculation. So when the time comes, I'm sure we'll find out. And James Gunn has picked a lot of fan castings in recent times, so maybe he will go with somebody like a Karl Urban or a Jensen Ackles or a Alan Ritchson or a Tom Hardy or even a Dave Bautista or maybe Scott Eastwood. I think he would be the ultimate dark horse out of those names. But guys, let us know in the comments down below who you think would be your favorite pick for potentially playing Sergeant Rock in the movie that Luca Guadagnino is supposedly directing. If you go off the DC Studios sweatshirt that he has. But John, I think that's going to do it for us today. As Antonio was telling you guys in the chat, hit the like button while you guys are here live. And if you have or not subscribed to us yet, please do hit subscribe because we are here 5 days a week. Tomorrow, Liz will be back on the show. She's going to be back with us for a couple of days. Then, we'll be back on Friday as well. Of course, we've got 3 more shows left in the week. So if you hit subscribe, that way you'll know when we are putting up a new episode. If you hit the notification bell, then you know when we go live. And if you haven't already, of course, as always, hit that like button on the way out. Anything else to add, John, or do you think we want to call it a night? We'll be back tomorrow with more news, or you got anything else in there for us on the way out?
Tip your waitresses.
Cool. And on that note, we'll see you guys tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily.